The young couple was a matched set of troublemakers. One was making waves in the here and now, while the other was destined to stir up a storm in the not-so-distant future. That day, it had been a spur-of-the-moment decision from Claire Sterling. She'd simply worn a professional business suit for her financial etiquette class, yet she had somehow conjured the aura of an empress on a royal tour, sending a shockwave through the entire Berkeley campus. It wasn't that the Berkeley students were unworldly, nor was it that Claire's outfit was particularly flashy or ostentatious. It was simply that her usual style was so casual and relaxed. The one time she dressed up, she had inadvertently switched back to her main account, unleashing her full, formidable presence. The result was, unsurprisingly, a complete and utter rout. It was a dimensionality reduction attack on every other girl at Berkeley. To say she outshone them all felt like a frivolous understatement. The girl was merely exuding her natural aura, calmly stepping off the campus shuttle and walking across the quad with her classmates. But with that one understated act, her steady, commanding presence left everyone in a state of shock. At that moment, a group of students from the schools of law and the arts were just getting out of class, laughing and chatting as they emerged from their buildings in performance costumes and formal suits. They were peacocks, all preening and competing for attention. They happened to cross paths with the School of Business students heading to class. The instant they passed Claire Sterling, they all seemed to fade into the background. The same kind of formal wear, on her, was pure, effortless power. It made the other girls look like clumsy ducklings playing dress-up, awkward and immature in comparison. The girls on the new campus just stood there, frozen, staring blankly at Claire's retreating back. They glanced down at their own outfits, and an involuntary wave of inadequacy washed over them. At that very moment, Chloe Cheen, the reigning girl of the School of Law, was chatting with a few friends on a second-floor balcony. Hearing the commotion below, she instinctively turned, her gaze falling over the railing. She saw that coolly beautiful figure striding forward, flanked by her business school classmates like a CEO leading her executive team on an inspection. For a moment, even Chloe Cheen was stunned into silence. That presence, she murmured, a genuine note of awe in her voice. The legends are true. It was a heartfelt sigh of admiration and a bitter laugh at her own expense. Unfortunately, the other, even more stunning girl from the new campus wasn't around to witness the chaos. Isabella Zhao hadn't joined the crowd. While the campus was in an uproar, the top beauty of the fine arts program was focused on her painting in an art studio. A few of her friends burst in, flustered and breathless, their faces a mixture of shock and excitement as they told her what was happening outside. They described the legendary Claire Sterling from the old campus, confirming that her reputation was no exaggeration. Their voices trembled with a mix of reverence and awe. Isabella, however, was unfazed. Okay, I heard you. It wasn't that she believed her own looks were the absolute best at Berkeley, or that prettier girls didn't exist. She just thought her friends were being a little dramatic. Besides, even if there was a girl so stunning she could overshadow her, it was probably a good thing. She was tired of all the pointless drama about who was the it girl of which department. Maybe this would finally let her have some peace and quiet to paint. But speaking of painting, Isabella's eyes fell on the corner of the canvas in front of her, noticing a slight crease and a smudge. Her mind flashed back to the previous Monday afternoon, to that encounter in the hallway. Specifically, to that judo throw. For some reason, Isabella Zhao felt a phantom ache in her backside. Her eyes narrowed unconsciously. For a girl known for her serene and calm demeanor, a dangerous glint appeared in their depths. That damn con artist. I won't forget this. I will get my revenge. Leo Wallace sneezed again. He glanced around, bewildered. Felt like someone was just talking about me. He shrugged it off. Whatever. It's probably just some jealous loser at Berkeley. It was early evening now. The sunset painted the sky in brilliant streaks of color as dusk began to fall. Leo stood in front of the old campus parking lot, watching the shuttle pull up. The School of Business students filed out one by one. They all recognized him, offering polite but strained greetings, their voices a cocktail of envy, jealousy, and resentment. Hey, Leo. As her classmates, they too had been lucky enough to witness Claire in her full business attire for the first time. They had been just as blown away. But on the bus, they had overheard some of the girls from room 205 chatting. They'd pieced together that Claire's stunning transformation today had something to do with her old desk mate from Northwood, which was to say, her actual boyfriend. In other words, they owed the magnificent sight to him. They should have been thanking him. But that thought just fueled their jealousy even more. The School of Business hadn't seen a goddess of her caliber in years, and she'd been snatched up by some guy from another department. and there was nothing they could do about it. They'd been desk mates in high school. Their bond was deep. Screw it, they all thought in unison. To hell with Northwood High. Finally, Claire Sterling stepped off the bus. The moment he saw his girlfriend descending the shuttle steps in that suit, even though he'd seen it before, even though he was more prepared than anyone, Leo was still hit by a staggering wave of pure awe. This is Claire's final boss form, he thought. Her level 99 skin. He suddenly understood why every single one of those business students had been looking at him with murder in their eyes. Having disembarked, Claire spotted Leo and a smile blossomed on her face. She gracefully walked toward him. In her 6-centimeter heels, her already tall frame was now nearly 1.78 meters, just a few centimeters shy of being eye level with him. A playful smirk curved her lips. She reached out a slender hand, and one finger playfully hooked his chin. "Well now," she purred, her voice a low, teasing drawl. "Aren't you a good boy? Here to pick your big sister up from work. Dress for success, Ms." Bertha Sue hadn't quite switched out of her power player persona. The lazy, confident aura of a mature, dominant woman radiated from her, nearly causing the nearby business students to stop dead in their tracks, their jaws hanging open. They shook themselves out of their stupor, desperately trying to control their expressions as they hurried away, eyes wide with shock. That bastard Leo Wallace. He's a dead man. Screw Northwood High. Leo felt a dark line form on his forehead as he gently removed her finger from his chin. "It's not work, it's class. And I'm older than you, remember?" This girl was really starting to act like the future CEO of Sterling Holdings. An equity distribution and a key personnel appointment weren't things you could finalize over a few text messages. After getting Leo's initial response, David Chung quickly sent another message, suggesting they meet the next day at their usual spot, the South Bank Cafe, to discuss the details. Tomorrow was Friday, and Leo's advertising class had to go to the new campus anyway. The class was at 3:30 p.m. He did a quick calculation. He could meet for lunch, hash out the details with Chung, and still make it to class on time. After that, he could take the shuttle back to the old campus, and from there, he could go see his girlfriend. That's right. Tomorrow was Friday, the day the young couple returned to their love nest. No, to the L&S house. No matter how important the business, nothing could get in the way of their private world. He texted David Chung the time. Chung confirmed almost immediately. Lunch tomorrow was on. At the end of the message, however, he added one more line. "I'm bringing 2 other people with me tomorrow. They want to meet you too." Reading that last line, a knowing smile touched Leo's lips. Although Happy Nest was Chang's baby, a major shift in equity and the creation of a new executive position would naturally raise some eyebrows among his core team members. So, it seemed tomorrow wasn't just a simple meeting. They were coming to vet him. But that was fine. He tossed his phone aside, sank comfortably into his pillow, and closed his eyes, ready for sleep. His powers of persuasion had been leveling up recently. Whether it was the web novel Author Potato or the entrepreneur David Chung, he could talk circles around them. He'd even managed to talk that arts department girl into thanking him after he'd judo flipped her on her ass. Persuading a couple more people wouldn't be a problem. The next day, Friday, in the morning, Leo sat through 2 large lecture classes on the old campus. During the lecture, he could hear his classmates buzzing with excitement. The topic, unsurprisingly, was Claire Sterling's stunning business suit and her empress-like procession through the new campus the day before. The guys in his class were reliving every detail with boundless admiration. It was seriously legendary. "That's our Claire for you." Finally knocked those arrogant peacocks on the new campus down a peg. The girls, on the other hand, were lost in daydreams. She just wiped the floor with everyone. I heard she completely silenced that prideful flock from a school of the arts. Why wouldn't give to have that kind of powerful, confident vibe just once? Then, as if on cue, they all turned to look at Leo, their expressions a complex mix of emotions. A goddess of that caliber. And this guy landed her. Sure, Leo himself was brilliant and stood out from the crowd. But a perfect, ethereal being like Claire Sterling seemed beyond the reach of any mortal. So it really all comes down to Northwood High. The atmosphere, there must be something else if it can make a goddess like her fall in love. Say what you will, but there's something special about that place. Whispers spread among the students. Then, inevitably, an idea began to form. They weren't thinking screw Northwood High anymore. Now, they were thinking Northwood High was some kind of sacred ground for romance, maybe even more effective than a temple. Many of them made a silent vow. I have to make a pilgrimage to Northwood High, even just to soak up some of the good vibes. Lunch break started at 11:40 a.m. Leo had agreed to meet David Chung at 12:30, which meant he didn't have time to eat with Claire. He needed to hurry to the East Gate and catch a cab. On his way, He called her to explain. At first, Claire sounded puzzled. Isn't your class at 3:30? Why are you leaving so early? Leo, now standing on the curb outside the east gate, flagged down a taxi. Yeah, he said into the phone. There's been some progress with that business deal I was telling you about. I'm going to finalize things. Claire didn't know the specifics of what her boyfriend was involved in lately, but she worried he was working too hard. Business again? Aren't you tired? Make sure you eat. Your health is more important than work. If any of the future executives at Sterling Holdings had heard their CEO say that, they would have burst into tears on the spot. Boss, when you were assigning us projects and leading the charge into corporate battles, you never said anything like that to us. Leo's heart warmed at her concern. Don't worry, I know my limits, he said with a smile. I've got to keep both hands on the wheel, work and health. I have to make money to support you, after all. On the other end of the line, Claire's lips curled into a small pout. I have money. You don't have to kill yourself trying to earn it. She paused, then added in a light, casual tone, and if you're keeping both hands on things, you could always grab something else. You seemed pretty skilled the other night. Leo blinked, confused for a second. Then it hit him, Wednesday night, in their bedroom at the L&S house, grabbing her slender legs clad in black stockings. He nearly got a nosebleed right there on the street. He cleared his throat, trying to sound righteous. Well, I have big hands. I can grab more things. We can test that out tonight if you don't believe me. Claire raised an eyebrow, a seductive glint in her eye. Oh, really? Okay, come home early. I'll be waiting. The call ended. As he settled into the taxi, Leo put his phone away, his mind already drifting into a fantasy world conjured by his girlfriend's words. The driver glanced at his passenger in the rearview mirror, a flicker of alarm on his face. This Berkeley kid seems a little off. What's he smiling so stupidly about by himself? Meanwhile, in the campus dining hall, Claire sat alone at a corner table and put down her phone. She thought about her conversation with Leo, especially his matter-of-fact declaration. I have to make money to support you. She pouted softly. You little idiot. You don't actually have to support me. But even as she said it, she couldn't hide the sweet smile spreading across her face. Ah, having a boyfriend is the best. Why aren't more people in relationships? Is it that hard to find someone? At 12:15 p.m., Leo's taxi arrived at the South Bank Cafe. The last time he was here was, well, the last time he was here. He pushed open the familiar glass door, the wind chime above it jingling softly. He found the same table as before and sat down. As he settled in, he glanced instinctively toward the corner window seat. Last time, he'd run into Lily Lou and her two friends. No such coincidences today. He was about 15 minutes early for his 12:30 meeting with David Chung, so he had some time to kill. As he waited, he started organizing his thoughts. After deciding to officially start his own venture, he had used domain flipping as his seed capital. The next step was supposed to be making quick cash through browser-based games. But unexpectedly, after selling the Happiness domain, he'd stumbled into an even bigger opportunity. The site's founder, swayed by Leo's pitch, which was really just Cheng's own genius ideas repackaged and sold back to him, wanted to bring him on board. It was a fantastic platform and a real opportunity. Leo had already spent the previous night formulating a plan for his involvement with Happiness. It didn't conflict with his original browser game project. In fact, the two could complement each other. Happy Nest would be his entry ticket into the brutal arena of the domestic internet market. The browser game would be his cash cow, providing a stable source of funding for his growing business empire. Since he was going big, he might as well go all in on both. Go all in on both. 1 second, he was deep in serious business strategy, and the next, those words sent his thoughts spiraling in a completely different direction. He was back in the bedroom of the L&S house 2 nights ago. Her legs, wrapped in black stockings, were perfectly toned, the skin smooth and soft to the touch. Wait, what was I just thinking about? Oh right, my business empire. The texture of my business empire was fantastic the other night. Jingle jingle, the pleasant sound of the wind chime broke his reverie. The glass door opened, and footsteps approached. A familiar voice called out, "Brother Leo." Leo snapped back to reality and looked up. A middle-aged man with a neat buzz cut and black-framed glasses was striding toward him, his expression serious but with a warm, enthusiastic smile. He extended his hand. "Sorry to keep you waiting." It was, of course, the founder of Happiness, David Chung. Leo stood and shook his hand, smiling calmly. "Not all. I just got here myself." His gaze then shifted past Chung to the two people who had followed him in, a man and a woman. The man looked to be in his early 30s, dressed in standard programmer casual attire. He had a lazy demeanor, but his eyes held a sharp, shrewd glint. The woman was in her late 20s, wearing a professional blouse, a blazer, and a gray skirt. Her hair was pulled back in a high ponytail, and she wore delicate gold-rimmed glasses. She was attractive, but her most striking feature was an air of mature, intellectual charm. As Leo sized them up, they were doing the same to him. The moment they saw how young he was, a flicker of shock crossed their faces, but they quickly concealed it. The woman couldn't help but linger on his face for an extra second. I don't know about his skills, but he's definitely as handsome as David said. David Chung noticed Leo's glance and smiled, making the introductions. This is Owen Wu and Penny Fong. They're our acting technical supervisor and planning director. They're the future core of Happy Nest. When I went back and told them about the plans and ideas you shared, they were quite shaken. They want to take this opportunity to meet you in person. He phrased it politely, but Leo easily read between the lines. It was less about meeting him and more about a refusal to believe it, a desire to test him for themselves. He wasn't bothered. He smiled and gestured with his hands. You're too kind. Please sit. Let's talk. His calm and composed demeanor made Owen and Penny give him another look, a hint of surprise in their eyes. For a college kid to be treated with such respect by their boss, and for him to show absolutely no signs of nervousness or pressure. If nothing else, his poise was already a cut above his peers. The four of them sat down. David, Owen, and Penny were on one side, with Leo sitting alone opposite them. It felt a bit like an interrogation. David, in the center seat, looked at Leo and smiled slightly. Regarding your terms, I discussed them with the team after I went back. The answer is what I texted you yesterday. We'll add another 2% to the equity, and in exchange, Happy Nest will hire you as our chief strategy officer. Since you don't have any objections, then today we can sign the letter of intent. His words were cut off. I have an objection. It was Owen Wu, the programmer. His lazy facade was gone, replaced by a sharp, calculating glint in his eyes. He looked at Leo with a half-smile. David, we never planned on having a CSO in the first place. This kid is young. He has one coffee with you, and suddenly he gets to climb over the heads of everyone who's been busting their asses? If word of this gets out, it's not going to sit well with the team. David Chung frowned at his subordinate. Owen, watch your tone. But Penny, sitting on the other side, chimed in with a smile. Exactly. Leo is our guest. Owen, you're being so aggressive, people might think we're here to cause trouble. However, she said, her tone shifting as her gaze fell on Leo. Leo, please don't take this the wrong way. Owen's point does reflect the feelings of many people at the company. To take on a position like CSO at such a young age, if you can't show us some real substance, it's bound to cause gossip. I want 20% of the initial equity. The statement landed like a bomb, stunning David Chung and his team into silence. Before coming here, they had a plan. They would offer him the chief strategy officer position, but they would use it as leverage to pry a few more ideas out of him. Who could have imagined that the kid wouldn't give a damn about the title? In fact, he'd used it to double down, demanding twice the equity. Wait a minute. You're trying to have your cake and eat it too? Owen was the first to snap, his eyes wide. Holy shit, dude. Did you even think before you said that? How many drinks have you had? Penny, the composed professional, was so shocked she was speechless, her mouth slightly agape. The expression was, admittedly, a little alluring. David Cheng's face hardened, but he fought to maintain his composure. His brow, however, was deeply furrowed as he stared at Leo. Brother Leo, that's not a funny joke. Leo remained perfectly calm. I'm not joking. Cheng's expression darkened. This isn't what we agreed on. I was willing to add another 2% to the original 8. That was already a sign of immense sincerity. Leo just smiled, his demeanor still relaxed. I know, but the original 8% was just the price for the domain and that first set of ideas. If you want me to accept the CSO position, that comes with a different price tag. David Cheng's brow was now a tight knot. He spoke in a low, firm voice. 20%. That's too much. It's impossible. Even after their last conversation, which had convinced him that the ideas in Leo's head were exactly what Happy Nest desperately needed, 20% of the initial equity was far beyond what he could accept. Cheng's tone was resolute, almost cold. The negotiation was on the brink of collapse. But Leo remained unhurried. He looked up at David Chung and smiled. Don't be so quick to refuse. I didn't say 20%. I said 10 plus 10. The initial 10% remains, same as we discussed. The other 10% will be part of a wager. Hearing this, Owen couldn't help but interject again. A wager? You're a college kid who hasn't even had a real job. What do you have to wager with? His tone was dripping with disbelief and condescension. Penny shared his sentiment. She frowned at Leo, thinking that even if this young man had some talent, he was unbelievably arrogant. They had no idea what was coming next. They were about to find out what true arrogance looked like. Facing the open skepticism, Leo remained unruffled. He met David Cheng's gaze calmly. I'll bet that within 1 year, I can get Happy Nest to 70 million registered users and 20 million daily active users. Within 2 years, we'll be one of the top 2 internet companies in the country, fighting for the #1 spot in social media. Within 3 years, the company will go public. We'll be ringing the bell at NASDAQ. His words were spoken calmly, but they crashed down like 3 successive bolts of lightning, leaving David Chung and his team reeling in shock. Every number, every goal he had casually laid out was the kind of thing people in the industry didn't even dare dream about. Yet here, on a quiet, sunny afternoon in a normal coffee shop, this young man was stating them as fact, his expression utterly serene. It felt surreal, absurd, like a dream. A moment later, as they slowly came back to their senses, Owen was the first to react, his face a mask of scorn. He almost stood up. Dude, you don't even bother with a rough draft when you bullshit, do you? David, I think we're done here. If we hire this guy as our CSO, we'll be the laughingstock of the entire industry. Penny was slightly more restrained, but her brow was furrowed, her opinion of the young man having soured considerably. Owen's right, she said softly. David, maybe you should reconsider. Only David Chung remained seated, his eyes fixed on Leo, his gaze deep and unreadable. Give me one reason to believe you. Leo smiled. All right, we still have time. How about you all listen to me for another 10 minutes? Owen was already losing patience. What's there to talk about? Listen to you bullshit for another 10 minutes? Penny also looked at her boss with a frown. David, the site is about to go live. We need to hurry back and run tests. But David Chung raised a hand, calmly motioning for his 2 subordinates to sit back down. He turned back to Leo. Speak. He had learned his lesson from the last time. This time, he would be more patient. Leo smiled slightly. It's just a rough framework of ideas. Give it a listen. Feel free to correct me. 5 minutes passed. 10 minutes. 20, then 30. Leo spoke for a full half-hour without pausing. Across from him, the 3 listeners went from initial indifference to stunned silence, then to growing gravity, then shock, and finally, to ecstatic excitement. In the end, it was a familiar scene. Owen Wu, the technical supervisor, and Penny Fong, the planning director, sat on either side of their boss, laptops open, fingers flying across their keyboards as they furiously typed notes. Their focus was absolute. They stared at Leo, ears pricked, eyes wide, afraid of missing a single detail, as if a single forgotten word would be a catastrophic loss. Finally, Leo stopped, took a sip of water, and cleared his throat. All right, that's about it for now. Owen and Penny looked up, panicked. What? That's it. No, what about the next part? Keep going. Leo set his glass down and smiled at the 2 core members of the Happy Nest team, who were looking at him like eager students. I have to get a class. Besides, I only promised to talk for 10 minutes. I've already gone way over. Penny and Owen were speechless. So this is how our boss felt last time, they thought. That boomerang came back fast. Sitting between them, David Chung was overcome with emotion. His chest heaved slightly, and his eyes shone with an unprecedented, fierce excitement. The founder of Happy Nest suddenly stood up, extended his hand to Leo with even more gravity and respect than before, and said, Please, allow me to walk you out. The wind chimes sang as David Chung personally escorted Leo out of the coffee shop. His 2 subordinates, Owen and Penny, followed close behind. This time, they were utterly convinced. David Chung looked at Leo, his mind still replaying the young man's eloquent dissertation. Even at nearly 40 years old, he couldn't contain the thrill coursing through him. He had left a high-powered job to start his own company, driven by his own ambitions. But entrepreneurship was always a journey into the unknown. No matter how confident he was, until a product was live and tested by the market, there was always a sense of unease. Leo's words had parted the clouds for him, revealing a clear path forward. More importantly, his 3 promises, his wager, had ignited a fire in Cheng's own heart. His emotions surging, Cheng looked at Leo and said with genuine feeling, I've always considered myself a confident man, but I never imagined that you, brother Leo, would have more faith in me and Happy Nest than I do. Leo gave a faint smile. The internet is a new frontier in this country. If you're going to jump in, you have to have the guts to ride the biggest waves. This industry doesn't have a true domestic giant yet. Since one has to emerge eventually, why can't it be us? The words were spoken calmly, as if stating a simple, obvious truth. But that one sentence sent a jolt of adrenaline through Owen and Penny, making their blood boil with excitement. Chung himself was deeply moved. Good. A magnificent. Why can't it be us? With that sentence alone. For Happy Nest to have you join us is the greatest fortune. In that moment, the founder of Happy Nest was filled with a bold, heroic spirit. He extended his hand to Leo. This domestic internet market lets you and I conquer it together. Leo readily slapped his hand against Cheng's in a firm, mid-air clap. It was a pact, a sworn oath. Owen and Penny watched, their hearts pounding. It felt like they were witnessing the birth of a legend, a moment of epic history. David Chung let out a hearty laugh. I'm a picky judge of character, but after meeting you only twice, Brother Leo, I feel like we're old friends. From now on, we're comrades in arms. If you ever need anything, just say the word. It was a rare promise to hear from David Chung. Coming from a man of his stature and ability, it carried immense weight. Anyone else would have been overjoyed and would have treasured such a commitment. Leo, however, just nodded briskly. Sound good. Actually, there's something I need right now. I have to get to class. If it's not too much trouble, could you give me a ride? Huh? Owen and Penny, still caught up in their fervor, were completely dumbfounded. David Chung himself was taken aback. A what? Leo explained without batting an eye. It's hard to get a cab around here. I don't want to be late. David Chung. Penny and Owen. Penny drove. She took the company's Buick and dropped Leo off at the entrance to Berkeley's new campus. As they watched their future chief strategy officer walk into the university, his figure slowly disappearing into the distance, the three people in the car were still in a daze. The dissonance was jarring. One moment, he was a peerless genius in a coffee shop, calmly and eloquently mapping out the future of the entire domestic internet industry. The next, he was heading back to school for class. It was like watching a martial arts master, fresh from a spectacular victory, sheathing his sword and saying shyly, "Well, I've got to get home and tend to my farm." You have those kind of skills. Why are you still in school? With that level of mastery, shouldn't you be out making a name for yourself instead of being a humble farmer? The disconnect was so profound it felt surreal, almost magical. In the passenger seat, Owen, a Tsinghua University graduate, stared at the Berkeley gate, his eyes glazed over. Is Berkeley this incredible now? You could just grab a random student, and he's at this level. Suddenly, his elite degree felt a little less shiny. Maybe I should come to Berkeley for grad school? From the driver's seat, Penny turned to look at her boss in the back. David, where on earth did you find a master like this? David Cheng's own feelings were complicated. I didn't find him. I was just trying to buy the domain name for our website. It just so happened to be his. Penny and Owen blinked, then it dawned on them. Right? In the beginning, he was just a guy selling a domain. And then they were even more confused. Good God. Even the domain they desperately needed was something he had registered in advance. Seriously, who the hell was their new CSO? The protagonist of a rebirth novel. Leo had no idea what his future comrades at Happy Nest were thinking. He was in a great mood. He'd closed a deal, secured equity that could be worth 9 or even 10 figures in the future, landed a CSO position at a future internet giant, and, to top it all off, scored a free ride. A win on all fronts. And right now, the free ride was the biggest win of all. If he hadn't caught a ride, he would have been late and lost attendance points. He reached the classroom building on the new campus just as the bell rang. Taking the stairs 2 at a time, he found a classroom and slipped inside. His advertising classmates were already seated. His roommates from room 520 were waving him over. "Leo, over here." He went and sat down. The second his butt hit the chair, the design professor walked in with his textbook and notes. The familiar advertising design class began. The professor presented a few new case studies and, after his lecture, assigned the usual in-class work, continue refining their personal brand logos. As they worked, he walked around the room, checking their progress and offering critiques. When he reached the back row, he saw Dylan's and Leo's work and nodded, offering some praise and suggestions. He looked at Leon's design, saw the earnest, hopeful look in the date cake guy's eyes, and chose his words carefully. "Well, Leon, your date cake logo is looking more and more like a date cake." Finally, he saw Marco's masterpiece. The professor fell silent for a full 30 seconds. After a long, hard look, he turned to Marco, who was beaming with pride, awaiting his praise. The professor's face was filled with a strange kind of relief. "You're only a freshman. You're still young." Marco blinked, then his face lit up. "Are you saying my potential is limitless at such a young age, Professor?" The professor's face was a blank mask. "I'm saying you're still young enough to change your major." Buoyed by the professor's praise, Dylan threw himself into his design work with renewed vigor. Leon, also believing he'd been praised, focused intently on perfecting his date cake logo. As for Marco, our CEO in the making, he was heartbroken but defiant after the professor's brutal critique. "I'm just like Van Gogh," he muttered. "Great works of art are often misunderstood by the masses. Ordinary people just can't appreciate it." And with that, he plunged back into his abstract creation. Of the 4 members of Room 520, only Leo had finished his classwork and was now lost in thought. Well, not lost exactly. He was planning. At the South Bank Cafe, he had briefly discussed the future direction and launch plans for Happy Nest with David Chung and his team. It hadn't been too difficult. He'd basically just taken the first version of the site from his past life and helped them fill in the blanks for future updates, steering them away from a few dead ends they would have originally taken. The Happy Nest team had done a great job in their initial phase in his previous life. As the new CSO, he didn't need to do much for now. So he could set Happy Nest aside and get back to his browser game project. The licensing manager from Scrollverse, Chris, had already sent over the digital contract for the Battle Through the Heavens IP. He could print it, sign it, and mail it back this weekend. He also needed to keep in touch with the author, Potato, to maintain a good relationship. That would be crucial for marketing and promotion when the game launched. But after all that was done, the most pressing issue remained: building a team. The top priority was the art team. Leo had spent the last few days searching online for professional art studios. As he expected, any truly reliable talent was already tied up with major companies. Even if they were willing to take on freelance work, their schedules were packed. To meet the demands of his project, it would take at least 6 months. That was too long. The art teams that did have free time had free time for a reason. Their work was nowhere near the quality Leo required. Some of their portfolios were worse than Marco Shaw's. That was how bad it was. The bell rang, ending the class, but Leo was still pondering the art team problem. As soon as the professor left, his classmates scattered, using the half hour before the shuttle back to the old campus to wander around. Marco, Dylan, and Leon were heading to the new campus gym. They had heard it was full of athletic girls from the sports science department, a sight to behold. They invited Leo to join them, but he declined. Marco tried to persuade him. "Come on, Leo. The sports science department is all long-legged, athletic beauties. You don't want to miss out." Leo replied casually, "My girlfriend has long legs too. I'm fine just admiring hers." That shut Marco up. He thought about it, realized it was true, and stormed off, dragging Leon and Dylan with him. "Let's go, guys. Big deal. So he's got the campus goddess for a girlfriend." After parting with his roommates, Leo found himself wandering through the classroom building, and before he knew it, he was on the same floor as the art studio he'd visited before. It seemed a class had just let out here as well. As he passed a group of students, he overheard their conversation. Yesterday, in the parking lot, the campus goddess from the business school came for a class. It was like an empress on tour. Seriously incredible. Their voices were filled with awe and admiration. Leo couldn't help but feel a swell of pride. He was tempted to throw an arm around their shoulders and boast, "That's my girlfriend you're talking about." But in the next second, the conversation shifted. "By the way, I heard our own Isabella Zhao got bullied here the other day by some guy. I wonder what happened. I heard she even fell down." "What? Who would dare? If I find out who that bastard is." Leo's expression didn't change. He just quickened his pace and walked away, abandoning all thoughts of revealing his identity. "Isabella who? Never heard of her. Wasn't me." A few steps later, he passed the same art studio. Peeking through the back door, he saw it was empty. The class must have just ended, leaving behind numerous sketches and paintings on their easels. He thought for a moment, then stepped inside, slowly walking past the easels, glancing at the students' work. It was the same as last time, standard oil paintings and sketches, all following the textbook curriculum to the letter. Nothing special. He noticed a few discarded sketches on the floor, probably things students had doodled for fun. He picked one up, took a look, and then put it back down with a dark expression. This artist should have a chat with Marco. They'd probably get along great. Just as he was about to give up and leave, his eyes swept across the room and landed on a lone easel in the corner, a stack of paper next to it. Something about it caught his attention. He walked over, picked up the stack of sketches, and began to flip through them. What he saw made his eyes light up. The style and content were familiar. It looked incredibly similar to the work of the girl he'd accidentally run into in the hallway on Monday. A sudden sound of footsteps came from behind him. They were soft, deliberately quiet. He only noticed them when they were right behind him. He was about to turn around when he felt a hand grip his wrist from behind, while another hand pressed firmly against his back. A perfect back hold. If he had been a split second slower, or if he hadn't known how to react, he would have been pinned to the ground, completely immobilized. But he wasn't. Revenge failed. Isabella Zhao had also just finished class. She had completed the professor's assignment earlier than her classmates, and had spent the extra time sketching some ideas of her own. Lost in her work, she'd completely forgotten the time. When she finally looked up, everyone else was gone. She didn't mind. She got up and went to the restroom down the hall to wash her brushes and palette. As she rounded the corner on her way back, a sudden, vivid memory assaulted her. She remembered exactly what had happened in this very spot on Monday. She instinctively reached back and touched her, but it still ached faintly. She thought of the con artist's righteous expression, the way he'd calmly talked his way out of everything. Isabella gritted her teeth, muttering, "I will get my revenge." She walked back to the art studio. As she reached the back door, her eyes fell on a figure standing in the corner, right in front of her easel. It was a boy. He was tall and slender, his profile softened by the warm glow of the evening sun. Isabella froze, and then her heart started to pound, not with affection, with a thirst for vengeance. Her eyes lit up. The con artist. She'd recognize him, even if he were reduced to ashes. The opportunity to avenge the great humiliation of a few days ago had arrived far sooner than she'd expected. She held her breath, moving silently, her focus sharpening to a razor's edge. As she closed the distance, Isabella struck without hesitation, grabbing his wrist and pressing her other hand against his back. It was a perfect, textbook restraining hold. The movement was so fluid that even she had to mentally applaud herself. As a surge of triumphant satisfaction washed over her, she made sure to hold back, not wanting to actually hurt him. Just a little lesson for this con artist. The thought had barely formed when the unexpected happened. The figure in front of her suddenly shifted his weight back, bumping into her. Before she could even process what was happening, the world spun, and then a sharp pain in her rear. She had landed, once again, flat on her but on the floor. It was only then that Leo got a clear look at his assailant's face. He recognized her immediately, and then a giant question mark appeared over his head. Wait, her again? Does this girl have some kind of weird fetish? His first instinct, however, was to help her up. Are you okay? Isabella, dazed from the fall, let him pull her to her feet, her head still spinning. I'm fine. Thankfully, there had been a soft mat on the floor this time, cushioning the blow. It wasn't as painful as last time. Isabella reached back to rub her backside and hissed through her teeth. Okay, it still kind of hurt. Seeing her wince, Leo immediately went on the defensive. Hey, this has nothing to do with me, he declared righteously. You started at this time, so what was that all about? Isabella was still disoriented. Hearing his words, she nodded dumbly. I wanted revenge. Her voice was tinged with frustration. And I failed. Leo was confused. Revenge? For what? By now, Isabella's head was clearing. She looked up at him, her brow furrowed. Last time, you tricked me. You're the one who threw me, but you made me thank you for it. Leo finally understood. Oh, she figured out. The delay was a bit long, but she got there. This was a minor hurdle for Leo, the great con artist. Faced with her accusation, he seamlessly changed the subject. Last time is debatable, but you can't argue with this one. I was just looking at some art, and you sneak up behind me and attack me. That was pure self-defense. He said it with an air of absolute conviction. Isabella was stumped. She wanted to argue, but this time, she really couldn't. But still hurt, which made it hard to think clearly. She could only nod numbly. Yes, this time. It was my fault. Leo clapped his hands together. Exactly. Last time, I was a little at fault. This time, you were at fault. That makes us even. And this time, I even held back. I was worried I'd hurt you, so I made sure to throw you onto the mat. Otherwise, it would have been much worse. Isabella glanced down at the mat beneath her feet and shuddered at the thought of hitting the hard floor. She nodded. True. Leo pressed his advantage. So, you should thank me for that, right? Completely bamboozled again, Isabella nodded meekly. Okay. Thank you. Look at that. It worked again. A tiny, cartoon version of Leo, in his mind, was grinning from ear to ear. This artsy girl's looks and her wits seemed to be inversely proportional. On the outside, he just nodded solemnly. You're welcome. It was the right thing to do. With that crisis averted, Isabella finally regained her composure. Her gaze fell on Leo again, then on the easel next to him. She frowned. What are you doing here? Leo shrugged, just wandering around, looking at the art. He gestured to the stack of sketches by the easel, and then looked back at her, realization dawning. These are yours, aren't they? He remembered seeing them when he'd helped her pick them up in the hallway. The style was identical. As expected, Isabella nodded. Yes, they're mine. Leo leaned over and picked up the stack of sketches again, flipping through them. They were the only things in the entire studio that had caught his eye. They weren't your typical art school assignments. They were free-form character designs, bursting with creativity, mechs, ancient warriors, fantasy heroes, and heroines. The style was bold, the lines exquisite and imaginative. More importantly, Leo flipped to another page. A drawing of a woman in ancient robes, looking like an immortal goddess, filled the sheet. Her legs were long and flawless, and her chest was ample and dazzlingly white. He turned to Isabella, his face filled with genuine admiration. Did you draw this one too? Isabella snatched the sketchbook from him, her expression unreadable. Of course, it's art. That's exactly the attitude I need. Looking at Isabella again, Leo's eyes were now filled with undisguised appreciation. The perfect candidate for his art team had just fallen right into his lap. Finding an art team for the battle through the heavens browser game. Leo's requirements were simple and direct. A solid technical foundation, a beautiful style, a bold imagination, and preferably a talent for fantasy and mythological themes. Also, the ability to draw handsome men and beautiful women, especially women with long legs and generous chests, was a major plus. Artists like that would be easy to find on the internet a decade from now. Hell, in that era, you had more than just artists. You had a whole army of content creators. Leo himself had collected a vast number of resource websites and followed many master artists. Well, that was the Leo from his past life. It had nothing to do with Leo Hammer Wallace. In 2008, however, finding the right person was no easy task. But as luck would have it, the art school girl he had now judo flipped twice was, by sheer coincidence, a perfect match for all his needs. More importantly, Leo thought one step ahead. If he could recruit this easily confused Ms. Zhao to his side, her influence as the it girl of the art school would make it a breeze to find other talented artists and build his entire team. When money isn't enough of a lure, use a honey trap. Recruiting Isabella Zhao was a masterstroke that would kill two birds with one stone. His mind raced, and in the blink of an eye, he had devised 100 ways to utilize the dazed girl in front of him. But his expression remained perfectly sincere. He switched into recruitment mode, his eyes shining as he looked at Isabella. Are you interested in working for me? Huh. Isabella blinked, her confusion growing. This guy's train of thought moved way too fast. 1 second, they were arguing about who was at fault for a judo throw. The next, he was offering her a job. And what did he mean work for him? Wasn't he a student too? Seeing her bewildered expression, Leo explained, I'm starting a business. I'm making a browser-based game. Everything else is ready to go. I just need an art team. I couldn't find anyone suitable, but then I saw your work. It's a perfect fit. He said it without batting an eye, but it was a total lie. He hadn't even registered a company yet. It was like planning a hot pot dinner without even owning a pot. Isabella didn't see through his bluff, but she still frowned, asking bluntly, why should I say yes? It was a fair question. They were strangers who had met twice by sheer accident. They had no connection. In fact, their only 2 interactions had involved her getting thrown on her ass. Their relationship wasn't just shallow, it was painful. But Leo was prepared for this. Because we share the same artistic passion, he declared. You love to create. I can give you a stage to showcase your talent. Leo had actually done his homework over the past few days. He knew that the art school curriculum was rigid and traditional, focused on classical Chinese ink wash or Western sketching and oil painting. For a creator with a more daring imagination, it was stifling. He leaned in slightly, his voice taking on a more persuasive tone. In your classes, the professors only let you draw what's in the textbook, right? The stuff you really want to draw, you can only do in your spare time, in secret. You have to hide it behind your assignments, and no one gets to see it. It'll be different with me. The game I'm making needs artists who can unleash their full creativity and imagination. There will be no restrictions. You can create in the style you love most. You'll be in charge. And I guarantee this game will be one of the hottest in the country. Your work will be seen by millions of people across the internet. You'll be the #1 game artist in the country. It was a string of temptations, a devil's whisper. Every word hit its mark, and Isabella found her heart beginning to pound with excitement. But then she snapped back to reality, her guard immediately going up. Wait, why should I believe you? He had a point. A regular college student, claiming his browser game would take the nation by storm and his art would be seen by millions. It sounded wonderful, and his tone was undeniably charismatic. But when you thought about it calmly, it was absurd, completely baseless. Who are you? What makes you think I should believe a word you say? Leo just smiled. You don't have to believe me. You can see it for yourself. 3 months, 6 at the most. When the game goes live, the facts will speak for themselves. As he said this, his entire demeanor shifted. He radiated a calm, effortless confidence, an inexplicable charm that left Isabella momentarily stunned. For some reason, despite the absurdity of his claims, she found herself starting to believe him, as if he really could achieve everything he said. Then, he changed tack again. Of course, whether you believe me or not isn't the point. I'm not asking you to work for free. There's a salary. Isabella blinked, then her eyes lit up. A salary? Suddenly, she was genuinely interested. Or perhaps she was just curious to see how far his bluff would go. How much can you offer? Leo held up his hand, forming a number with his fingers. 1,500. Isabella's lip curled in a slight sneer. A mere 1,500. She could make more than that a month taking freelance commissions online if she worked hard. In the next second, Leo calmly corrected her. 1,500 a week. Isabella froze. 1,500 a week. That was 6,000 a month. She swallowed hard, trying to maintain her composure. She forced herself to act nonchalant. A mere 6,000. You think you can buy me with such a paltry sum? Before she could finish, Leo added calmly, 6,000 during the probationary period. After that, it can double based on performance. Bonuses are calculated separately. That was the last straw. The words hit her like a thunderclap, leaving her stunned for a full 3 seconds. When she finally came to, she calmly changed her tune. Well, on the other hand, if you're that desperate for talent, I suppose I could be persuaded. Money paved the way. Forget 2008. Even a decade later, the starting salary for a recent graduate in a major city was often just around 4,000. At this point in time, a probationary salary of 6,000 was absurdly high, not to mention 12,000 after becoming a full-time employee. Leo was willing to offer such a sum because he had seen Isabella's work and recognized her talent. He was also factoring in the influence she could wield in recruiting the rest of the art team. In fact, he was a little surprised she had agreed so readily. While the salary was high for a normal student, a beauty of her caliber, the it girl of the art school, was probably used to being showered with expensive gifts from wealthy admirers. Even someone like Sarah Lynn had suitors dropping thousands on her birthday. Isabella was in a completely different league. She could probably take on 10 Sarah Lynns. So, logically, this amount of money shouldn't have been enough to sway her. But looking at her now, trying and failing to hide the sparkle in her eyes, he could tell her excitement was genuine. In the end, he could only chalk it up to one thing. This girl was just really, really gullible. A $6,000 a month probationary salary was enough to buy the loyalty of an art school goddess. Leo was still marveling at this when he realized Isabella was looking at him with suspicion. After the initial shock wore off, she started to have second thoughts. She sized him up, her eyes filled with distrust. Do you even have that kind of money? She remembered that this guy was a con artist. He looked to be about her age, a freshman or sophomore at most. Starting a game company? Casually offering a 6,000 a month salary? The more she thought about it, the less plausible it seemed. Leo wasn't bothered. He didn't need to explain. He just pulled out his phone, tapped the screen a few times, and showed her a text message. Isabella leaned in, curious. She saw the screen, a balance notification from his bank. 3 digits, 4 or 5. 6 digits, $200,000. Isabella's eyes went wide, the string of zeros spinning in her pupils, making her head swim again. Leo smiled. Believe me now? She nodded dumbly. When she looked up at him again, she gave him a thorough once-over. Are you some rich kid? Leo chuckled. Nope. Isabella stared at him, unconvinced. If you're not a rich kid, how do you have so much money? Leo explained with an air of casual nonchalance. I talked my way into it. He talked his way into that much money. Isabella was about to call his bluff, but then she remembered her own first-hand experience with his persuasive abilities, and suddenly, it seemed almost plausible. She glanced at the balance on his phone screen again. She reluctantly accepted this reality, but she was still confused. Even if you have money, you can't just offer someone such a high salary, she mumbled. We don't even know each other. Then, a thought occurred to her. She looked up at him sharply. Are you trying to hit on me? She added with a serious expression, I don't date. This time, it was Leo's turn to be surprised. He found the whole thing hilarious. Don't worry, I'm not interested in you like that. Besides, I have a girlfriend. She's prettier than you. He thought for a moment, then added, and she can fight better than you. It was the absolute truth. As he spoke, his mind flashed back to the winter break at the Sterling estate, training with Mr. Joe. He remembered his sparring sessions with Claire. He rarely gained the upper hand. Take, for example, what had just happened with Isabella. The same backhold, when used between him and Claire, often ended with their roles reversed. He was the one who ended up getting thrown. To put it simply, after a whole winter break of sparring, he had never once gotten the better of Bertha Sue. Well, that wasn't entirely true. In another sense, he had gotten the better of her quite a few times. Leo was being completely honest, but Isabella didn't quite believe him. While she didn't care about titles like a girl, she had a realistic assessment of her own looks. A girlfriend prettier than her? Here at Berkeley? She wasn't being arrogant, but there weren't many who could compete. Except, perhaps, for that one girl who had swept through the new campus like an empress yesterday. She didn't dwell on that part, though. It was the second part of his statement that got under her skin. What did he mean? She can fight better than you. She had trained with a professional instructor. She was about to protest when a sudden movement sent a jolt of pain through her backside. She winced, the sharp sting a clear reminder of her recent humiliation. Leo noticed and asked with concern, "What's wrong?" His question was like adding fuel to the fire. Isabella's anger flared. The more she looked at him, the more annoyed she became. Then, an idea for revenge came to her. She looked up at him. "I'll work for you, but I have one condition." Leo was surprised, but he nodded readily. "Name it." Isabella stared at him, her eyes unblinking, and said in a dead serious tone, "You have to let me throw you." Leo, question mark. A question mark popped up over the cartoon Leo in his mind. What the hell? What kind of ridiculous condition is that? Isabella, however, seeing his stunned expression, felt a surge of satisfaction. She repeated her demand firmly. "Let me throw you. You threw me twice. I want my revenge." Finally understanding, Leo was exasperated. Isn't that a little childish? But Isabella was insistent. "That's what I want. If you let me throw you, I'll take $1,000 pay cut." Ms. Isabella, dazed and confused, Zhao was very serious about her revenge. Then she hesitated for a moment and amended. "Okay, a $500 pay cut." Isabella Zhao was on the verge of tears. It wasn't just the pain in her, but it was the sheer, infuriating injustice of it all. How could he ask why she didn't dodge? "You were the one who told me to throw you. How could you fight back?" Isabella had never been coddled, and she had endured her fair share of hardships, but she had never experienced pain quite like this. Judo thrown twice in one afternoon. The first time, at least there had been a mat. This time, she had landed squarely on the hard floor. Seeing her eyes welling up with tears, Leo felt a pang of guilt. He carefully helped her to her feet. Sorry. How about a do-over? I'll let you throw me again." Isabella's eyebrows shot up, her eyes blazing with righteous fury. "Again? So you can throw me again? You big con artist. I'm not falling for that." To think that she, the esteemed girl of the art school, had never been so humiliated. And now, in the span of 1 week, she had been judo thrown 3 times by this jerk. A wave of self-pity washed over her, and her eyes grew redder. Leo was starting to panic. "Okay, how about this? That $500 you were going to cut from your salary? We won't cut it. We'll stick to the $1,500 a week probationary pay." Huh. Isabella's tears stopped midstream. She sniffled, and her eyes lit up again. "Okay, then." But just as she was about to agree, she realized something. Wait a minute. The deal was that she would take a $500 pay cut if she got her revenge. Since she hadn't, her salary shouldn't have been cut in the first place. The realization sent a fresh wave of indignation through her. That bastard. He almost tricked me again. Seeing her eyes quickly turning red again, glistening with fresh tears, Leo scrambled to salvage the situation. "I'll add 200. A weekly salary of 200 more. Isabella glared at him through her tears. "Not enough." Leo shot back instantly. "Another 50. The tears were about to fall. He could hear footsteps and chatting in the hallway, getting closer. His danger sense went into overdrive. He made a final, decisive offer. "Another 50. That's 300 total. 1,800 a week." A miracle occurred. In the span of a single second, Isabella's tears vanished. Her red-rimmed eyes were suddenly bright and sharp. "Deal. No takebacks." Leo didn't hesitate. Done. He had finally managed to placate her. As the footsteps in the hallway faded away, Leo let out a sigh of relief. He glanced at Isabella, who was now wiping her tears, a look of satisfaction on her face. He rubbed his nose. He had only increased her probationary salary. Her full-time salary remained the same. Of course, given her processing speed, it would probably be a long time before she figured that out. They had finalized their employment agreement and exchanged contact information. Leo would send her a document with the specific job requirements later. With the most troublesome personnel issue resolved and the shuttle about to depart, Leo prepared to leave, feeling quite pleased with himself. But just as he was about to go, Isabella called out, "Wait." He stopped and turned, suddenly wary. What now? Had she already figured out his salary trick? With her brain speed? Unlikely. Isabella held up her phone, showing him the contact information she had just saved. I still don't know your name. Leo blinked, then realized she was right. They had met twice, he had thrown her 3 times, and while he knew who she was, he had never actually introduced himself. Meeting her bright, intense gaze, Leo smiled coolly. The name's Zhao. Kevin Zhao. With that, he turned and walked away, leaving her with nothing but the sight of his confident back. This girl clearly holds a grudge. If I tell her my real name, who knows what kind of revenge she'll cook up. When you're out in the world, it's always good to have a backup identity. Standing at the entrance of the art studio, Isabella watched him go, silently mouthing the name he had given her. Kevin Zhao. Her eyes narrowed, a sharp, clear glint in their depths. Kevin Zhao. So we share a last name. Interesting. She would remember this. He made it onto the shuttle back to the old campus just in time and found a seat by the window with his roommates. Marco and the others were excitedly recapping their adventures on the new campus, boasting about how they had caught a glimpse of the law school's it girl, Chloe Cheen. She had just gotten out of class and was wearing a lawyerly outfit that was, in their expert opinion, totally sharp and added at least half a point to her attractiveness score. Then they expressed their condolences to Leo. You really missed out, man. Another prime, people-watching opportunity, gone. Dylan looked at him curiously. What were you doing anyway? Leo thought for a moment. Nothing much. Just a little friendly martial arts sparring. The shuttle rumbled along, the scenery blurring past the window. The sky was a magnificent canvas of sunset colors. He still had some time before they arrived, so he was about to text his girlfriend when his phone rang. It was her. It was as if they were perfectly in sync. He answered with a smile. Hello. The first words he heard were a simple, direct question. Did you miss me? That one sentence was enough to send his 3 nosy roommates scurrying away, giving him a wide berth. Seriously, can these two go one day without their public displays of affection? The single slaughterhouse lives up to its name. Leo, now with plenty of space, chuckled and chatted with her for a moment. Then, she remembered something. Oh, by the way, she said, Any Cakes just called me. She said she's coming to visit us this weekend. The school bus didn't get back to the old campus until almost 6 in the evening. The sky was dim, quietly sinking into night. After getting off in the campus parking lot, Leo Wallace said goodbye to his roommates from room 520 and split off, heading straight for the East Gate to catch a cab back to the LNS house. The remaining trio from 520 watched his retreating figure, their faces a mask of envy. It must be nice to have your own little nest off campus. Damn, living off your girlfriend sounds amazing. I'm gonna live off a girl someday, too. After that last bold declaration, Marco Shaw and Dylan subconsciously glanced down at themselves, then at each other. The two brothers took one look at their own reflections in each other's eyes and, with a healthy dose of self-awareness, decided to give up. Forget it. We're not like Leo. We don't like living off girls. Leon, standing beside them, timely handed them each a piece of date cake. Chewing on the pastries, the two brothers swore a solemn oath. We'll work hard on our own, and then we'll let girls live off us. Once we're rich, what kind of girlfriend can't we get? At the very least, we gotta find someone who isn't too far behind Bertha Sue. Dylan's eyes gleamed. The one just a little behind Bertha Sue, the second-place girl at Berkeley, would be Isabella Zhao from the School of Arts. Don't you dare compete with me for her. Marco shot a disdainful look at his Gotham City brother-in-arms. What? Is she supposed to spend her life with you performing a silent play? Besides, he continued, a girl on her level? You think you can just earn a little cash and get on her radar? She's the undisputed it girl of the entire School of Arts. What kind of trust fund kids and big money hasn't she seen? You could drop $100,000 in front of her, and she wouldn't even blink. Dylan thought about it and realized Marco was right. He sighed in frustration. Then what do you suggest? Marco's spirits lifted. We won't aim for the highest tier, but we can look at the lower tiers. I've seen the girls from the different departments in the School of Arts, and they're still pretty incredible. That's the perfect place for us brothers to show what we've got. The two were deep in their heated discussion. They turned, ready to enthusiastically ask their dorm's leader for strategic advice, only to see that the date cake guy was already on the phone with his girlfriend, a blissful, sweet smile on his face. Yeah, just got back. Wait for me. I'll come find you for dinner. Sure, let's go for a walk on the track field tonight. He walked away as he talked, disappearing into the distance. Dylan and Marco. The evening spring breeze brushed against their faces, carrying a hint of warmth. But the two brothers from Gotham City felt nothing but a chilling cold in their hearts. Suddenly, all their motivation was gone. It just felt pointless. The two looked at each other, then slumped away, arms slung over each other's shoulders. Let's get dinner. What do you want? McDonald's, I guess. After we eat, we can go stand guard at the entrance. Leo flagged down a taxi at the east gate. After getting in, he gave the driver the address for the LNS house. Hearing the name of the community, the driver launched into a string of praises about its great location and beautiful environment. Just like the last driver, he complimented Leo on his family's excellent taste and success. And just like last time, Leo had to explain that it was his girlfriend's house. The driver paused, then shot him a thumbs up, his voice filled with a renewed sense of awe and envy. Then you, my friend, are even more incredible. Leo didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Seriously? He thought. Since when did living off your girlfriend become so respectable? He paid and got out at the entrance to the LNS house. As he walked into the front yard, he saw Claire Sterling escorting Mr. Chin out. The couple had been busy with classes the last couple of days, so the job of looking after a certain fat-headed parrot named Reasonable had fallen to Mr. Chin. And Mr. Chin, a true jack-of-all-trades, handled the parrot-sitting duties with ease. In just a few short days, he and Reasonable had become incredibly close. As he was leaving just now, the fat-headed parrot was even accompanying him out the door, flapping its wings and landing on his shoulder, utterly reluctant to see him go. Take care, big brother. Take care, big brother. Come back and play soon. Come back and play soon. Finally, it glanced cautiously at its female owner. Seeing that the young woman wasn't paying attention, it stealthily leaned in and whispered in Mr. Chin's ear. Remember the porn? Remember the porn? The allure of the great parrot MILF hunt was undeniable. Meanwhile, Mr. Chin seemed to be having a lively conversation with a young lady of the Sterling family. Bertha Sue herself held a great deal of trust and goodwill toward this #1 candidate for the best man at her future wedding. As they walked and laughed, the girl, even Rarelem, shared her recent frustrations about losing weight. Mr. Chin listened and immediately declared with utter conviction, "Losing weight? What's there to lose? The scale is the problem. I'll get you a new one later." Then, he righteously lectured the young woman before him. "You're not getting fat. It's because you have a boyfriend, and he's weighing heavily on your heart. How much does Leo weigh in your heart? 100, maybe 150 pounds? If you lose that, you'll be nothing but a fraction. You're so thin already. Are you trying to kill yourself by losing more weight?" Leo, who had just entered the yard, heard every word with crystal clarity. He was utterly dumbfounded, stunned in his silence. What #1 best man candidate? He thought. If this conversation continues, I'm starting to worry my position as the groom is in jeopardy. Why was he suddenly feeling a sense of crisis? Fortunately, in the next second, Claire heard the noise from the front gate and looked over. Seeing her boyfriend had returned, the girl's eyes instantly lit up. She walked briskly toward him. "You're back." Leo was just nodding. "Yeah, I just got here." Before he could finish, a fragrant breeze washed over him as the girl's soft body crashed into his embrace. Her arms wrapped around him, and she stood on her tiptoes, pressing a kiss to his lips. Their lips parted. Claire smiled at Leo, her eyes as bewitching as a fox's. "Today's quota isn't finished yet. We need to catch up." Mr. Chin, the sole audience member, watched them with a knowing shake of his head, full of admiration. "Look at them. A perfect match." He then shrugged his shoulders, signaling his little brother perched on top. The fat-headed parrot, having been well-trained recently, immediately understood, cleared its throat, and let out a resounding chorus of squawks. "Reasonable, reasonable, reasonable." Seeing the young couple reunited, Mr. Chin tactfully took his leave. Leo politely thanked him for his help with all the tedious tasks lately. But Mr. Chin just waved it off. "It's nothing. Just give me a call if you need anything. Your big brother here just loves to help people out." He paused, glancing at Claire, who was busy teasing Reasonable. He pulled Leo aside and lowered his voice. "You still haven't used that friendship bet of mine, have you?" Leo froze for a second, then lowered his own voice with a tone of regret. "The remote's not with me." The next second he saw Mr. Chin discreetly slip him a new remote. "No problem. I happen to have a spare." Leo. He looked at Mr. Chin again, this time as if he were looking at a living saint. What else could he be? They should just tear down that statue at the old stone chapel on Serenity Peak and let Mr. Chin sit there instead. After seeing Mr. Chin off, the young couple exchanged a smile and entered the house, wrapped in a sweet embrace. A certain fat-headed parrot waddled after them, flapping its wings. Once inside with the door closed, Leo glanced at the clock on the living room wall. It It was almost 6:30. He immediately rolled up his sleeves, ready to head into the kitchen and cook. But Claire stopped him. It's okay. I already made dinner. How to deliver a devastating blow in a single sentence. Leo was instantly stunned, frozen on the spot. You made it. Claire looked at her boyfriend and smiled gently. I got back from school early, and I figured you'd be home late, so I went ahead and cooked myself. Saves you the trouble. To come home after a hard day's work to a delicious soup prepared by your devoted girlfriend. It was a touching scene that countless men dreamed of. Leo didn't dare move a muscle. But seeing his beautiful girlfriend looking up at him, her eyes begging for praise, he had to force himself to compliment her. Great job. You're my wife, after all. Receiving her boyfriend's praise, the girl's face showed a satisfied expression, her eyes curving into crescent moons. I made 3 dishes. You could try them one by one later. 3 dishes. The only thing 3 times more terrifying than the mistress of a single slaughterhouse cooking 1 dish was the mistress of the house cooking 3 dishes. It seemed too late to run now. Claire took Leo's hand and led him toward the dining table. I just finished, so I let Mr. Chen try a little, she said as they walked. But he probably didn't eat much. Mr. Chen ate it too. Leo was momentarily stunned. He thought back to Mr. Chen's glowing, energetic appearance when he left. A question mark popped up in his head. Could someone really be that energetic after eating Bertha Sue's cooking? That didn't seem reasonable. Just as the thought crossed his mind, they arrived at the dining table. Claire's gaze swept across the table, and she let out a small, surprised sound. Leo instinctively looked over as well. The 3 plates on the table were completely empty, so clean that not a single crumb remained. Leo? Question mark. Claire was slightly taken aback, then she realized. He finished it all? Leo's eyes widened in shock. He finished it all. Claire couldn't help but smile. Mr. Chen has a pretty good appetite. There was a hint of satisfied pride in her voice. He praised my cooking after the first bite. I didn't expect him to eat the whole thing. No one expected it. Who could have possibly expected that? Leo was completely floored, in absolute disbelief. He turned to his girlfriend, seeking confirmation again. He really ate it and praised you? Claire nodded happily. He did. He also mentioned that he's not a picky eater, but his sense of taste is a little weaker than most people's. That's why he likes dishes with more vibrant colors. He even complimented how colorful my food was, saying it looked appetizing. Leo, weaker than most people's? This man has no sense of taste at all. But looking at the 3 plates, wiped clean without a speck left, Leo was practically bursting with joy. Mr. Chen, our hero, a man with 6 pieces of gold in his name, was truly worth his weight in it. And then some. Even his stomach was made of gold. Though he was ecstatic on the inside, Leo put on a look of regret and disappointment. Oh man, how could Mr. Chen do that? He ate everything. I wanted to taste your cooking. Claire looked apologetic. I forgot to tell him. How about I go make you another serving? She started to head for the kitchen. Leo snapped back to reality, nearly pale with fright. He quickly pulled her back. No, that's too much work. You get some rest, I'll handle it. As he walked righteously toward the kitchen, he made a mental note. Next time Bertha Sue decides to cook, he had to invite Mr. Chen over. It was a matter of life and death. In the end, Leo was the one who cooked, but Claire naturally followed him into the kitchen. It was an unwritten rule of the LNS house. When the mistress of the house cooks, all living things must stay away or be responsible for their own life and death. When a master of the house cooks, the mistress provides affectionate companionship. As he skillfully started preparing dinner, Leo chatted with Claire, who was standing behind him. He finally brought up the topic from the earlier phone call. So you were saying my stupid Amato. I mean, my annoying little sister is coming here for a visit. Claire pressed against his back, wrapping her arms around his waist and resting her head comfortably on his shoulder. It's not specifically to see us. There's a college debate tournament in the city. She's on the East Bay financial team, and she's coming to compete. A debate tournament. Leo was slightly taken aback, then it dawned on him. He remembered hearing his roommates and other classmates talking about it a few days ago. It was some kind of Golden State Invitational, with 16 universities from the area participating. They were already down to the Final 4. Berkeley's team was one of them. Leo remembered it because he'd heard Marco Shaw talking about it with great enthusiasm. The semifinals are on Saturday, right here on the old campus. East Bay Financial and East Bay 4 Language are full of beautiful girls. We have to go check it out tomorrow. It'll be a feast for the eyes. Coming back to the present, Leo thought about his cousin Annie Cake's sharp-tongued, little devil demeanor and pursed his lips. Debate suits her well. Most people can't win an argument against her. Claire couldn't help but laugh. We'll go cheer for her tomorrow. Setting the debate tournament aside for the moment, the young couple had dinner at the LNS house, then lounged on the sofa and comfortably watched a movie together. It was getting late. Claire got up and gracefully went upstairs to wash up, ready to head to bed. Leo watched his girlfriend's beautiful figure ascend the stairs. Then, he stealthily pulled out the spare remote Mr. Chien had given him. He looked at the treasure in his hand, his eyes glowing with fervent light. He finally had his chance. Tonight, he would fight to his heart's content. Gonna try and get another chapter out tonight. Mondays, hit that follow button and drop a comment. It keeps me going. Upstairs, Claire was taking a shower in the bathroom. The faint, drizzling sound of the shower head drifted downstairs, making Leo's blood boil with even more excitement as he clutched the friendship bed's remote control. But just waiting around wasn't going to cut it. Before the night's festivities could begin, Leo decided to take care of some actual business first. He slipped the remote into his pocket, got up, and went into the study. Sitting down at the desk, he opened his laptop, created a new Word document, and began typing rapidly. He had already drafted the basic content plan for the browser game project. He would send a copy to Potato, the author of Battle Through the Heavens, to get his feedback and suggestions. Also, now that he had successfully duped a certain Ms. Isabella Clueless Zhao into becoming the first employee of his art team, he could start creating and assigning her tasks. He couldn't let that $1,500 a week trial salary go to waste. He had to be meticulous and make the most of every penny. He would squeeze every last drop of energy out of his first subordinate. That way, she wouldn't have any time to plot her revenge. Come to think of it, Leo mused, Kevin owes me one for this. I'll make sure he remembers to repay the favor. Since he had already prepared the content plan, listing the tasks for the art team was a breeze. In one go, he organized all the main character designs, various props and items, and even some of the main game scenes needed for the initial phase, creating a very long checklist. Leo attached the document to an email and sent it to Isabella Zhao. Work done. He felt refreshed. He wasn't worried that the massive workload would shock or distress the fresh-minute girl. After all, he'd already tricked her onto his pirate ship. It was too late for regrets. If worst came to worst, he'd just give her a raise. The girl was easy to fool. Just as he was about to close his laptop, his phone rang again. It was David Chung. It was early March, and Happy Nest was scheduled to launch around the middle of the month. There were less than 2 weeks left. As the founder and CEO, David Chung always appeared calm and confident in front of his employees, but in reality, he was under immense pressure. Calling Leo late at night was his way of seeking more communication, hoping to get confirmation and validation from his new chief strategy officer. Leo understood David's feelings perfectly. From the perspective of the product itself, he knew that Happy Nest would be a huge success as soon as it launched. The things he was discussing with David now were merely to help patch up any potential holes and finalize the plans for future updates. More importantly, these conversations were really just to give the older man some psychological support and encouragement. In other words, to bullshit him. And Leo, the master bullshitter, felt he was exceptionally good at and well-suited for this job. Once he started talking to David Chung, it was hard to stop. One was a seasoned veteran of the internet wars, the founder of Happy Nest. The other was a man reborn. Their thought processes were highly aligned, and they had a natural rapport. The conversation grew more and more animated, and they occasionally sparked new ideas off each other. It wasn't just David who gained confidence and inspiration. For Leo, being able to have such a detailed conversation with a tech mogul from his past life was also an invaluable experience. They talked with growing enthusiasm, completely losing track of time. At the peak of their discussion, Leo leaned back comfortably in his chair, one hand casually twirling a pen, the other holding the phone as he spoke with calm eloquence. He was so engrossed that he didn't even notice that his girlfriend had finished her shower and quietly come downstairs, arriving at the study door. The girl, dressed in a silk nightgown, stood with her arms crossed, one smooth, fair, and alluring leg casually draped over the other. She leaned against the doorframe, her posture lazy and elegant. Watching Leo at his desk, talking on the phone with such confidence and ease, filled her with an unconcealable affection and admiration. The corners of her lips curved into a smile. My little idiot. We's focused on work. For some reason, it makes my heart flutter even more. She didn't make a sound to disturb him. The girl quietly stepped back, turned, and walked cheerfully back upstairs to the bedroom. As she went, she was already thinking, Leo, hammer. Wallace is working so hard tonight. Should I give him a little reward later? Maybe I'll find a pair of stockings to wear. The phone call with David Chung lasted for nearly an hour. After hanging up, Leo snapped back to reality and was shocked to realize it was almost midnight. It had been quiet upstairs for a while now. He hadn't even gotten to the main event yet. Leo shot up from his chair and rushed out of the study, flying up the stairs. He reached the master bedroom door and gently pushed it open. Peeking inside, he saw that, as expected, his girlfriend was already fast asleep in bed. Her breathing was even, her eyelashes trembling slightly, perhaps dreaming a sweet dream. A look of regret crossed Leo's face. It seemed tonight's battle would have to be called off early. He walked to the bedside and saw that Bertha Sue had kicked off the covers again. He was about to tuck her back in when his gaze inadvertently swept over her. And he suddenly noticed something. On the girl's long, beautiful legs exposed from under the blanket was a pair of black, thigh-high stockings. Oh, hell yes! Leo was instantly re-energized. He couldn't just let this opportunity for appreciation pass him by, could he? With a righteous expression, he reached out his hands, reasonably helping his girlfriend adjust her sleeping posture. This posture was indeed not good. So smooth, and quite firm. After getting his fill of touching, he still wasn't satisfied. A new idea popped into his head. Leo carefully glanced at his girlfriend's face, confirming that she was sound asleep. Then, he pulled the remote out of his pocket. Even though Bertha Sue was asleep, this was the perfect chance to test how this friendship bed worked. The remote was covered in buttons of various sizes, but the text indicating their functions was blurry and hard to read. He couldn't tell which button did what. After studying it for a moment without success, Leo decided to just try it out. He sat at the foot of the bed, right next to his girlfriend's stocking-clad legs. He picked up the remote and randomly pressed a button. Nothing happened. Leo frowned in confusion. The next day, Saturday, in the early morning, when Mr. Chien came over for his daily stroll to take a certain fat-headed parrot out for a walk, he entered the LNS house to find the young couple sitting at the dining table, eating breakfast. Everything seemed harmonious and normal, but the atmosphere was a little strange. Mr. Chien cheerfully greeted the couple. The girl at the table smiled and said good morning back. The young man across from her also returned the greeting, but as he did, he winced and subconsciously reached up to touch his ear. A keen observer would have noticed that his right earlobe was significantly redder than his left, and upon it were faint, evenly spaced teeth marks. Mr. Chien, ever the sharp observer, noticed immediately. The moment Claire took the dishes into the kitchen, he stealthily sidled up to Leo and gave him a thumbs up. Was it that intense last night? Thinking back to the previous night, Leo touched his earlobe with lingering fear. He sucked in a breath, wincing again. Yeah, it was pretty intense. Last night had been a disaster. The spare remote was mercilessly confiscated once again. In that split second, the brilliant mind of one Leo Wallace had raced to invent 10,000 righteous excuses. But the girl sitting on the bed simply listened with a placid smile, and then beckoned him over. Come here. Then two slender fingers expertly pinched his ear and yanked him closer. And then, with a casual inquiry, "Are you done?" Before he could even respond, came the light, airy declaration. Then, prepare to die, the girl opened her mouth and, chomp, bit down on his right earlobe, the most sensitive part of his entire body. The same bullshitting skills that could fool the great Isabella Zhao into a daze and trick Happiness David Chung into offering a massive salary and a senior position were utterly useless against one Bertha Sue. And so, for one whole night, his right earlobe suffered its punishment. He was also coerced into meekly repeating, "I was wrong, my dearest wife," an untold number of times. In short, it was a total defeat. "Oh, that kind of intense," Mr. Chien said, enlightened but also disappointed. Leo was even more disappointed. "You have no idea. I didn't even get anything out of it. A complete loss." He'd finally gotten his hands on a spare remote, only to have it confiscated. He'd only tested the friendship bed for a single second. The final result was a terrifying punishment. His ear had suffered along with him, and he'd even had his girlfriend's perfect foot pressed against his face, twice. Oh wait, that part was actually okay. Maybe it wasn't a complete loss after all. Having understood the situation, Mr. Chien eagerly offered some technical advice. "You pressed the wrong button. The friendship bed has adjustable modes. The one you hit was probably the 5th vibration speed setting. The normal sequence is to start with level 1 at the headboard, then level 2, then level 4 at the foot of the bed, and finally the most intense level 7 in the middle. Then it's just level 7, level 7, level 7, level 7. Leo listened with the humility of a devoted student, feeling greatly enlightened. Then he lamented again. It's a shame the spare remote was confiscated. Mister. Qian's face shone with the benevolence of a saint. Don't worry, I have a third spare remote. Leo was stunned. The way he looked at Mr. Qian was now filled with the same sense of awe, as if he were looking at a living legend. What kind of gold standard friend was this? They should erect a monument to Mr. Qian. The two were whispering conspiratorially, exchanging tips and tricks on how to use the friendship bed, when Claire emerged from the kitchen after putting away the dishes. She looked up and saw them. The girl raised an eyebrow. What are you two talking about? The two men instantly shot apart, both adopting righteous expressions. Nothing, just chatting, discussing national affairs and the well-being of society. Claire nodded. Then her gaze fell upon Mr. Qian, as if remembering something. By the way, some little pervert got his hands on another remote control last night. Mr. Qian, would you happen to know anything about that? The air suddenly went still. The girl's tone was casual, as if she were making small talk, but a dangerous aura had already begun to permeate the single slaughterhouse. The oppressive presence of the S-rank horror dungeon's final boss. One wrong answer, and the consequences would be dire. Leo's eyelid twitched. He steeled himself, ready to bravely step forward. It has nothing to do with Mr. Qian. Before he could finish, Mr. Qian cut him off. Oh, I know about that. Leo turned to look at Mr. Qian in shock, only to see his friend's face was a mask of honest sincerity. That was a universal remote. Reasonable said it wanted to watch the Great Parrot MILF Hunt, and I couldn't find your TV remote, so I brought it over to try and change the channel for him. I must have accidentally left it here. Claire froze. Reasonable. In the living room, the fat-headed parrot, who had been engrossed in its birdseed, also froze. It looked up dumbly. Reasonable. Then it snapped back to reality, utterly horrified, flapping its wings and hopping frantically. My ass! My ass! My ass! Not reasonable! Not reasonable! Mr. Qian continued without batting an eye, his expression still one of righteous dignity. Yes, that's what happened. But don't blame reasonable, it's mainly my fault. If you're going to blame anyone, blame me. The girl's brow furrowed slightly, then relaxed. I see. Then it's not your fault, Mr. Qian. Her tone softened. After all, this was the gold standard #1 candidate for best man at her wedding. He enjoyed the highest level of trust from a young lady of the Sterling family. As for a certain unlucky fat-headed parrot, it wasn't so fortunate. Reasonable was still hopping around its cage in a panic. I've been framed. 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 This is slander. Slander. The girl's gaze shifted, landing on her pet. Her eyes narrowed. A certain stupid bird. Looks like it needs a little lesson. The parrot, which had been flapping wildly mid-air, suddenly shuddered and dropped from the sky. It sensed the killing intent. Its beady eyes filled with terror, and it whipped its head around to its male owner, desperately pleading, Save me! Save me! Save me! Leo glanced at Reasonable. Then he turned to Claire and nodded without a change in expression. MHM, it's time for a lesson. Better you than me, buddy. One scapegoat is enough. In the end, the fat-headed parrot managed to save its own skin, for now. Because before Claire could figure out a proper educational method for Reasonable, a call came through on Leo's phone. He had just answered when the cheerful voice of a certain Annie Cakes came through the line. Her Majesty has arrived. The happy couple will welcome me in half an hour. Chop chop. Today, Berkeley was hosting the semifinals of the Golden State Invitational Debate Tournament. The teams from Berkeley, East Bay Financial University, East Bay Foreign Language University, and East Bay Institute of Technology were set to compete. Both semifinal matches were scheduled for the morning. Anna's team from East Bay Financial was already on their way. On the phone, Annie Cakes had brazenly demanded that Leo, Hammer, Wallace, and Bertha Sue be there on time to receive her royal personage. She then rattled off a long list of specific requirements. Give me 999 roses and a few flower baskets. Roll out a red carpet at the school gate. And find some greeters. I want 16 handsome guys. Oh, right, I'm also a little hungry. Have a feast ready for me. She spouted one ridiculous demand after another without batting an eye. Leo's face darkened. Are you dreaming? The most you're getting is a grilled noodle wrap from Food Cart. Take it or leave it. Annie Cakes immediately started feigning grievance. Sister-in-law, your piggy Leo is bullying me. Claire, who had increasingly adopted the demeanor of a protective big sister-in-law, felt a pang of sympathy. After a moment's thought, Bertha Sue kindly offered, well, I could make you something myself at home. I'll bring it over to you later. The other end of the line went dead silent for 3 seconds. Then Leo could distinctly hear a gulp, as if Annie Cakes had just swallowed with great difficulty. Finally, In a trembling voice that was struggling to sound calm, she said, "Actually, let's not go to all that trouble. Come to think of it, a grilled noodle wrap sounds great. Really great." The whole royal reception thing was just Anna being dramatic. Once she and her debate team arrived, they had to go to the tournament venue to check in. Their semifinal match was the second one of the morning, so they still had some time. To be fully prepared, they needed to use every last spare moment to practice. "I'll come say hi after we check in. Don't forget my grilled noodle wrap." With that, Anna hung up. Leo and Claire looked at each other and couldn't help but smile. In front of them, Annie Cakes was still the same loud, flamboyant character. Little did they know, at that very moment, on the bus heading to Berkeley, the atmosphere inside the East Bay financial team's vehicle was so quiet you could hear a pin drop. The debaters, the faculty advisor, and the crowd of East Bay students who had come along for moral support were all frozen solid, staring dumbfounded at the radiant girl sitting by the window in the back row. They couldn't help but recall the boisterous, demanding way their campus goddess of 3 years had been acting on the phone just moments ago. It made them question their own eyes and ears. Wait a minute, was that really the East Bay goddess they all knew? The same Anna who was always so elegant and graceful on campus, whose gentle smile kept everyone at a respectful distance. As if sensing the shocked stares from all around her, Anna put away her phone and met their gazes, effortlessly switching back to her usual demeanor. She smiled faintly, elegant and composed. "What is it? Is there something on my face?" That enchanting smile made every boy in the bus feel his heart skip a beat. They all hurriedly shook their heads and waved their hands. "Nothing, nothing." They rubbed their eyes and looked again, just to be sure. The East Bay campus goddess was now gazing out the window, a faint, lovely smile on her lips, as if she'd thought of something amusing. The bright spring sunlight streamed through the window, illuminating her stunningly beautiful profile. It was breathtakingly heart-stopping. The East Bay students on the bus were relieved. "Okay, good. She's still the elegant, noble campus goddess we know and love. We must have imagined it." With Annie Cakes on her way, Leo and Claire headed to campus. They planned to split up and meet their respective roommates, who had all heard about the debate tournament and, having nothing better to do, wanted to join the fun. After dropping Claire off at her dorm, Leo turned to leave. He had just reached his own dorm building when he saw his roommates from 520 excitedly running down the stairs. Seeing Leo at the entrance, Marco Shaw waved enthusiastically. "Leo, hurry up. Let's go to the lecture hall in the second classroom building. The tournament is about to start." Dylan nodded vigorously beside him, his face flushed with excitement. "Let's go see the pretty girls." For a simple debate semifinal, those two were more passionate than the actual contestants. On the way to the second classroom building, the 4 members of room 520 snacked on the date cakes provided by their dorm leader while engaging in a heated discussion about the 4 teams. Marco Shaw was a walking encyclopedia. Berkeley's team is 2 veterans and 2 rookies, a senior and a junior leading 2 freshmen. The senior's name is Lu Kai, supposedly an 8th dan debater in the city circuit, a top-tier master. The junior is the former it girl of our humanities department, Felicity Fong, a woman of both beauty and brains. East Bay Tech is nothing special, all guys I hear, but East Bay Foreign Language and East Bay Financial are a different story. That's where the beauties are. I heard the foreign language team is all girls this year, and each one is more gorgeous than the last, especially their 3rd speaker. She's supposedly the it girl of their language department. Her figure is insane. Leo didn't know whether to laugh or cry. His roommate Marco was something else. He never missed a single piece of intel related to beautiful women. He could probably make a career out of it. Leon and Dylan, however, were listening with rapt attention. "What about East Bay Financial?" they urged. "How are they?" That question got Marco even more fired up. East Bay Financial is on another level. Remember what I told you guys? They have a campus goddess who's held the top spot for 3 years straight. Her looks and aura can only be described as legendary. Her name is something like Anna. She's the 2nd speaker on their team, their ace. In a little while, we'll be lucky enough to catch a glimpse of her in person. Work is killing me, but I'll still try for another chapter tonight. Please drop a comment and follow. The 3 brothers of room 520 were still daydreaming about getting a distant look at the legendary East Bay Financial campus goddess. Meanwhile, Leo had spotted a food cart selling grilled noodle wraps and had gone over to buy one. So, he didn't get the chance to casually mention to his roommates that they wouldn't have to look from a distance. When his stupid Amato arrived, they could get as close as they wanted. They could take pictures, get autographs, whatever they liked. Maybe I can charge an admission fee. When he came back with the noodle wrap, the trio was waiting for him. Seeing the food in his hand, they asked curiously, "Leo, you haven't eaten yet?" Leo shook his head and explained casually, "My sister's coming later. This is for her." His words left his 3 roommates stunned. "Your sister?" Leon asked, confused. "I didn't know you had a sister." But Marco's eyes lit up instantly, immediately focusing on the important details. "How old is she? Is she legal? Is she pretty? Does she have a boyfriend?" Before he could finish his barrage of questions, Marco was already gripping Leo's hands with fervent enthusiasm, shaking them vigorously. "Leo, my man, I'm not going to lie. From the very first day we moved in, I felt a special connection to you. It's a ways for us to just be roommates. We were destined to be family." Dylan eagerly chimed in, "Me too, me too." "Leo, you have to help the poorest among us first." The 2 brothers from Gotham City launched into a passionate speech about the importance of keeping things within the family. The logic was sound, but when Leo looked at Dylan and Marco, then thought of his own little devil, Anna, he shook his head repeatedly. "No way. I can't do that to you guys. You two can't handle someone like Annie Cakes." This was genuine concern for his good friends. Marco was still thumping his chest, his voice full of passion. "What do you mean can't handle? Leo, you're underestimating me. I'm Marco Shaw of Berkeley. What kind of girl haven't I seen? With just a little effort, I can handle any girl." Dylan, however, had noticed a particular detail. "Annie Cakes? Why does your sister have a name like that?" So, Leo explained the origin of the nickname. The 3 roommates finally understood, and Marco and Dylan's faces fell with disappointment. "She's that chubby? If her face is like a cake, how round must it be?" Marco, still not entirely convinced, pressed Leo for more details. "What kind of cake? The mini soup dumplings we have here in the South, or those giant northern meat buns that could choke a person?" Leo glanced at him. "The kind that'll kill you if you eat it." Having temporarily given up on the mysterious Annie Cakes, the guys from room 520 continued to gush about the East Bay financial goddess Anna. The group of 4 arrived at the 2nd classroom building on the old campus. As they headed upstairs, Marco was still lost in thought. "She's the girl of East Bay Financial. 3 years at the top. For 3 consecutive years. No one could even come close to her looks. They say if there were 3,000 beauties, she'd account for 2,999 of them. Just how beautiful can this Anna be?" Leon, munching on a date cake, casually asked, "Is she as beautiful as Bertha Sue?" It was a good question. Dylan and Marco were momentarily stunned. Then they both shook their heads decisively. "Probably not. Bertha Sue is in the judges' panel. She's beyond the level of the contestants." But then Marco stroked his chin. "If she's just a little less than Bertha Sue, then she's probably on the same level as our own Isabella Zhao from the School of Arts. Maybe the 2 of them are in the same league." This time, it was Dylan's turn to look curious and wistful. "I haven't seen either of them. If you put them together, I wonder who's prettier." The 3 of them couldn't decide, so they turned to Leo. "Leo, what do you think?" Leo had been listening to his roommates gossip about girls while starting to eat the grilled noodle wrap he'd bought for Anna. He mumbled indistinctly, "I think they're both just okay. Pretty average." One was clueless Zhao, whose brain had a ping of 460 ms. The only impression she'd left on him was easy to fool. The other was Annie Cakes, his stupid Amato. He'd known her his whole life and was sick of seeing her. Who cared what she looked like? She was a little devil, and that was that. But his assessment was met with a unanimous chorus of condemnation from his 3 roommates. "What do you mean, pretty average? They're famous, top-tier beauties. How can you say they're average when you haven't even seen them?" "Leo, you're getting arrogant." Leon cut off his date cake supply for the next week. Amid their bickering, the 4 of them arrived at the 3rd-floor lecture hall, the venue for today's debate semifinals. As they entered, they were greeted by a sea of people and a cacophony of noise. Even Leo and his friends were taken aback. So many people? They'd never known Berkeley students to be this passionate about debate. Leo spotted many familiar faces in the crowd. People from the arts department of the Humanities Student Council, classmates from his own major, and even some familiar faces from the School of Business. Seeing the 4 from room 520 enter, many people came over to say hello. Leo received his fair share of greetings, but Marco knew even more people. As they exchanged pleasantries, they also exchanged knowing glances. "You here for the girls?" "Of course, the East Bay financial goddess is here." After a round of intelligence gathering with his cronies, Marco returned, his face flushed with excitement. "I got the scoop. All 4 teams are checking in backstage right now. East Bay Financial is there too." At that moment, Leo was texting Claire. She said she and her roommates from 205 were on their way. He had just replied and was about to put his phone away when another call came through. As soon as he answered, Annie Cake's cheerful voice rang out. "Piggy Leo, where are you? I'm done checking in." Leo looked around. "I'm here too, right at the entrance to the lecture hall." "Okay, don't move. I'm coming to find you," Anna said quickly, then promptly hung up. Marco was still trying to egg on his roommates. "Let's push to the front. We might get a close-up view of the East Bay financial goddess." It's hard to imagine a lecture hall, buzzing with noise and excitement one second, falling into a dead, profound silence the next. It happened because of one radiant girl's affectionate gesture of linking arms with someone, and because of her impossibly charming, flirtatious call. "Darling, did you miss me?" How to Stun an Entire Room with Just 5 Words, by Annie Cakes. In that moment, the massive lecture hall fell so quiet you could hear a pin drop. Hundreds of students from Berkeley and the 3 other universities, all waiting for the debate to begin, were suddenly frozen into stone statues. They couldn't believe their eyes. But the scene before them was undeniable. The breathtakingly beautiful it girl of East Bay Financial was clinging intimately to the arm of some male creature. In fact, half of her soft, slender body was pressed right up against him. The East Bay Financial students, ? The Berkeley students. The students from the other 2 universities. The 3 roommates from 520. 1 second, the students had been completely captivated by the East Bay goddess's stunning beauty. The next, they were utterly shocked. "Wait, what's going on? Is the East Bay goddess taken? Who is that guy? Her boyfriend?" The students from the East Bay Financial debate team and their cheering squad were even more shocked than the onlookers from other schools. They were completely dumbfounded. "What is happening? This is our university's undisputed goddess. An elegant, noble being to be admired from afar, never to be touched. Normally, no matter how friendly she is, her smile always holds a cool distance, keeping everyone at arm's length. When has she ever been this intimate with a guy? And she even called him darling?" A tidal wave of emotion crashed through the hearts of the East Bay students. Forcing down their shock and grief, they instinctively turned to the Berkeley students next to them to ask, "Who is that guy? Is he from your school? Does he know our Anna?" Their own campus goddess had been poached by someone from another school. The East Bay students were already shocked and heartbroken enough, but they never expected the Berkeley students they asked to be even more grief-stricken than they were. Their anguish was practically overflowing. "Damn, his name is Leo Wallace. Damn it. You're asking us? Who are we supposed to ask? We want to know too. How the hell does this kid know so many campus goddesses?" By now, Leo Hammer Wallace was quite well known on Berkeley's old campus. On one hand, it was because of his performances during freshman orientation, the Welcome Gala, and the New Year's Gala. His singing and guitar skills had earned him the secret admiration of many female students. On the other hand, it was because of his semi-public status as the potential boyfriend of the great Claire Sterling. This had easily landed him the #1 spot on the hit list of every male student on campus. Don't think for a second that the brilliant scholars of Berkeley were above jealousy. Every time they saw him holding hands with Claire on campus, their minds were filled with envy, and they never forgot to mutter viciously, "Screw Northwood High." But over time, everyone had slowly, reluctantly, come to accept it. Even a goddess as cool and stunning as Berkeley's freshman it girl had to date someone. And dating that scoundrel Leo Wallace. Well, they were, begrudgingly, a decent match. However, the Berkeley students never, ever imagined that this bastard, already blessed with a divine girlfriend like Claire Sterling, would now have the it girl from East Bay Financial acting so intimately with him too. Is there no justice in this world? If even strangers were this shocked, it was nothing compared to the reaction of the 3 people closest to him, his roommates from 520. Marco Shaw, Leon, and Dylan stared at the scene, their brains instantly short-circuiting. After a long moment, Leon, the date cake guy, was so shocked he didn't even notice the pastry fall from his hand. Leo, what's going on?" Marco stared at Leo, his eyes wide. "D, darling?" Dylan's face turned beet red with shock. He furiously scribbled on his whiteboard and held it up for Leo to see. "H?" At that moment, Leo finally snapped out his own brief stupor and hurriedly tried to explain. "Don't listen to her. She's my sister." Before he could finish, Annie Cakes cut him off. She snuggled even closer, rubbing against his arm, and said in a shy, coy voice, "Don't get the wrong idea. I'm just his dear little sister." As she spoke, the stunningly beautiful campus goddess of East Bay Financial even seemed to blush. Leo? Question mark. He looked at the little devil beside him, as if she were a monster. What the hell are you blushing for? But that one sentence successfully skewed the atmosphere again. Sister. Dear little sister. One little word made a world of difference. Now everyone in the room was convinced of their ambiguous relationship, and their minds collectively broke once more. Many Berkeley students cried out in grief. Goddess Anna, don't be foolish. This guy has a girlfriend. Hearing this, Anna just blinked her innocent, sincere eyes. I know, he has a girlfriend, but that doesn't stop him from being my darling. The capable should do more work. It's perfectly reasonable for an outstanding boy to work a little harder to bring happiness to more girls, right? What the hell? The collective CPU of everyone in the room was about to overheat. How is that reasonable? Someone was on the verge of jumping up and slamming the table in a frenzy. But then, suddenly, something fell off. This kind of absurd, reasonable logic. Why does it feel so familiar? Then, a look of realization dawned on Anna's face. She smiled like a flower blooming and explained, "This is a Northwood custom. It's how we do things where I'm from." The air went silent for a second. Then her words fell like a stone into a calm lake, creating a massive splash. Hey, Northwood, custom. For words that were infamous and despised by nearly every student on Berkeley's old campus. In an instant, all the Berkeley students had an epiphany. So that's it. This East Bay goddess is also from Northwood. The next second, a wave of rage shot through them. Their anger towards that small coastal town on the southeast coast nearly exploded. Are you kidding me? Even this is a Northwood custom? Screw Northwood customs. Just as the situation was about to spiral out of control, Annie Cakes seemed eager to stir up more trouble. And then a calm, pleasant voice drifted over. A Northwood custom, you say? Funny, I don't remember that one. Everyone froze, the voice vaguely familiar to the Berkeley students. As everyone turned to look, they saw the source. The great Claire Sterling herself had arrived and was now standing right in front of Annie Cakes. At that moment, Claire looked at her best friend and sister-in-law with a placid smile and said, "Care to explain?" For most of the students present, the sight of Anna gracefully walking through the parting crowd was enough to leave them breathless, stunned by her radiant beauty. Every smile from the East Bay girl could effortlessly make hearts flutter, and her elegant gestures were intoxicating. She had easily become the center of everyone's attention. However, when Claire appeared, seemingly out of nowhere, the coolly beautiful girl merely had to stand there, right in front of the East Bay goddess, and it was as if the entire atmosphere of the room was instantly and naturally hers. A moment ago, almost everyone in the lecture hall subconsciously felt that no matter how beautiful another girl was, she would pale in comparison to the East Bay it girl. But now, with the arrival of the great Claire Sterling, they were shocked into realizing that there were always higher mountains to climb. They thought the East Bay goddess was the pinnacle of human beauty. Who would have thought that there was a woman even more coolly transcendent, more breathtakingly magnificent, and cut above the rest? A wave of shock and awe rippled through the crowd. The students from East Bay Financial, East Bay Four-Language, and East Bay Tech could hardly believe their eyes. Who is that? Her aura and looks seemed to even surpass Goddess Anna's. The Berkeley students, however, recognized Claire instantly and erupted in excited cheers. It's Goddess Sterling. Some of the quicker ones immediately put two and two together, understanding the situation. Then they sucked in a sharp breath, their eyes wide with nervous excitement. Holy crap. This is the legendary showdown. East Bay Financial, Anna. Berkeley, Claire Sterling. When the two impossibly beautiful young women stood face to face, one elegant and smiling, the other coolly stunning and magnificent, they easily commanded the entire lecture hall, becoming the absolute focus of all attention. At that moment, everyone held their breath, not daring to make a sound, with only one thought in their minds. It's over, it's over. They're going to fight. Everyone had clearly heard Anna's brazen public declaration just moments ago, and they could all hear the killing intent hidden within Claire's calm question when she arrived. They were obviously both here for the same guy. The worst part was that even now, the East Bay girl still hadn't let go of the man's arm, and right in front of his widely acknowledged official campus girlfriend. The hearts of every student in the audience were in their throats. Oh my God, this is so intense. Is someone going to die? They were both nervous and wildly excited. Goddess Sterling was clearly here to catch a cheater and settle scores. And this Goddess Anna didn't look like someone who would back down, provoking her right to her face. When these two goddesses clashed, Wasn't it going to be a bloodbath? Who would be the winner in the end? However, just as everyone was holding their breath, their eyes wide so as not to miss a single detail, the unexpected happened. The great campus goddess of East Bay Financial, Anna, looked up at Claire's smiling face. Her expression changed in an instant, switching to a fawning, eager smile. "Oh, hey, sister-in-law, you're here." Then, she immediately let go of Leo's arm, scurried over to Claire, and took her arm, shaking it enthusiastically. "I was just kidding, sister-in-law. Just teasing this piggy Leo." The turn of events was so sudden it almost gave everyone whiplash. The entire audience was stunned into silence, their minds blank. Well, what the hell? Sister-in-law? Before anyone could process what was happening, a fair, slender hand shot out. Under the dumbfounded gaze of the entire room, two of Claire's fingers expertly and unceremoniously pinched Annie Cakes' ear. Goddess Sterling smiled at her best friend and sister-in-law, tilting her head slightly. "Well, how do you want to die?" Two slender fingers pinched the earlobe. Then they tugged. Instantly, Annie Cakes was yelping and wincing. "Ow, ow, ow, that hurts. Sister-in-law, I'm sorry. Be gentle, be gentle. My ear's going to fall off." Everyone in the room. They were all completely baffled, frozen like statues as they watched the scene unfold, their brains struggling to keep up. Wait, wasn't this supposed to be a showdown between two goddesses? What is this? The East Bay students were especially dumbfounded, seeing their usually elegant and composed campus goddess getting her ear pulled by a girl with an even more powerful aura, wailing like a toy being played with. They were utterly speechless. Is this really the goddess Anna we know? After a while, the chaos subsided. Claire released Anna's ear and glanced at her. "Explain." Annie Cakes, greatly relieved, quickly nodded and bowed to her sister-in-law with a fawning smile. Yes, I'll explain right now." She turned around, and in a second, she had switched back to her elegant campus goddess persona, casually brushing a stray strand of hair from her forehead. She looked at the stunned crowd and smiled sweetly. "I was just joking. Let me reintroduce myself. I'm Leo's dear little sister." Wait, sister-in-law, don't come over here, I misspoke," she cried out, hastily backing away from Bertha Sue, who was about to reach for her again. Then, regaining her composure, Anna smiled at the crowd. "I'm Leo's sister. He's my brother." The room fell silent again. First, they were stunned. Sister? Brother? Then, as the realization dawned on them, their gazes shifted back and forth between Leo and Anna. Finally, their eyes settled on Leo, and they began to gleam with a new, fervent light. Brother? Suddenly, they all had an overwhelming urge to become his brother-in-law. Still more tonight, sadly begging for comments and gifts. The truth was out. It wasn't some dramatic love triangle, just a sister visiting her brother and sister-in-law at Berkeley. The Berkeley students had an epiphany. So that's how it is. A torrent of flattery immediately followed. "I knew it. Brother Leo isn't that kind of guy. He's the picture of righteousness. How could he get involved in that kind of mess?" Exactly. Brother Leo and Goddess Sterling are a match made in heaven, a legendary couple. They've been my idols since I was a kid. The shameless praise was laid on thick. They all tried to get closer to Leo, hoping their future brother-in-law would see how well they'd match with Goddess Anna, how they could all be one big, happy family. The East Bay Financial students also breathed a collective sigh of relief. Thank goodness, so they're just siblings. They'd been worried their campus goddess had been snatched away so easily. Now, everyone was happy. Their goddess was still single. All the guys still had a chance. After their relief settled, the East Bay students' minds also started buzzing with ideas. Back at school, Goddess Anna was to be admired from afar, but now they knew she had a brother. Maybe they could try getting to her through him? It might just work. Immediately, the East Bay students also started crowding around Leo, their faces full of fawning charm. "Hey, Brother Leo, we're Anna's classmates and teammates. You should come visit us at East Bay sometime. We'll treat you to dinner." Suddenly having a massive crowd of eager potential brothers-in-law, Leo finally understood the true popularity of his little devil of a sister. At first, he tried to act the part of the protective older brother. None of that. Not just anyone could be my brother-in-law. A $300 gift certificate to the Dragon Palace all-you-can-eat buffet. He paused for a second. Then his demeanor changed instantly. "Oh, you're too kind. So, are there any higher bidders? A silver membership card for the ice rink? Not bad. Wow, a gold card for the Dynasty Lounge? And it comes with 3 special services? What kind of services are we talking about? Are they legit? Let's discuss the details." Just as he was getting into a heated discussion, he felt a sharp pain in both ears simultaneously. 2 slender hands had grabbed his ears. Anna gritted her teeth. So you're just going to sell me off like some commodity, are you? Claire had a half smile on her face. Someone's interested in special services? What kind were you looking for, the legit kind or the other kind? Snapping back to his senses, Leo felt the imminent danger and quickly tried to backtrack. No, I was just curious. Ouch. Annie Cakes, what are you talking about? As your brother, I was just checking the market for you. I wouldn't actually sell you. Both ears were twisted again, and he was dragged away by the two women, yelping all the way. Ow, gentle, please, somebody save me. The rest of the students in the lecture hall watched them go, their faces filled with envy. That guy had no idea how good he had it. For that kind of treatment, they'd gladly let their ears be pulled too. Out in the hallway, the unfortunate young man was given a stern talking to. By the time Claire and Anna were satisfied and let go, Quinn Liu, Molly Tang, and Jay Jiang from room 205 came rushing over. Claire, why are you out here? Hurry, go watch the show. That East Bay girl is inside. We have to see how gorgeous she really is. They were chattering excitedly as they approached the trio. They immediately spotted Anna, standing between Leo and Claire, and they froze. Quinn's face was a mask of astonishment. Whoa, where did this goddess come from? She's drop-dead gorgeous. Molly's eyes lit up. Wow, she looks exactly like the main character in the novel I'm reading. She's a fairy. Jade seemed to realize something. Could this be? In front of strangers, Anna naturally reverted to her elegant, graceful demeanor. She tucked a strand of dark hair behind her ear and smiled at the three girls from 205. Hello, I'm Anna, the good-looking girl from East Bay Financial. Then she glanced at Claire and quickly added righteously, Of course, I'm still a little behind my sister-in-law. The three girls were stunned. Sister-in-law? Then they all put it together, their mouths dropping open in even greater shock. This is the one you were telling us about. Leo's sister. His sister is the East Bay girl. They never expected such a coincidence. Immediately, the three girls from 205 became much warmer toward Anna. Anna, in turn, showcased her social skills, and within moments, she was chatting and laughing with them like they were long-lost sisters. On the other side, Marco Shaw and the guys from room 520 had also managed to squeeze their way out of the lecture hall. Anna turned and smiled, greeting Leo's three roommates. At home in Northwood, she was a little devil, but out in the world, especially in front of boys, the charm of the East Bay goddess was devastatingly effective. Leon, the date cake guy, gave her all the snacks he had left, aside from the portion he was saving for his girlfriend. Have some more. There's plenty. Dylan turned beet red after just a simple hello from Anna, not knowing what to do with his hands. In his fluster, he ended up handing her his whiteboard. The others were shocked. Dylan, calm down. That's your prized possession. Finally, it was Marco's turn. He shot his two roommates a disdainful look. Pathetic. Watch and learn. He straightened his collar, walked up with what he considered to be an elegant and charming demeanor, and looked at Anna with deep affection. Anna, my dear, I have a heart that loves you. Will you accept it? Anna smiled sweetly. I'm sorry. I don't accept trash. Marco. Marco Shaw bravely charged forward. Marco Shaw returned, battered and bruised. Everyone else burst out laughing. Quinn was laughing so hard she could barely breathe, slapping Marco on the shoulder. Give it up, Marco. You're way out of your league. If you offered her that little heart of yours, she'd probably step on it like a bug. Ha ha. After all the commotion, the two dorms had officially met Anna and hit it off immediately. Leo casually added, just call her Annie Cakes. Anna is too formal. This earned him a furious glare. I told you not to call me that in public. By the way, where's my grilled noodle wrap? Hey, you pig, you ate my noodle wrap. Sister-in-law, your man is bullying me. She turned and complained indignantly. Claire patted her head comfortingly. It's okay. He was hungry. Let him eat. I found some of the cookies I made last time back in my dorm. You can have them. He doesn't get any. She then produced a small plastic bag from seemingly nowhere and held it out to Anna. Inside the bag was a familiar, colorful darkness. The pitch-black little cookies clattered against each other, making a metallic sound. Anna, she swallowed hard. Annie Cakes struggled to keep her composure as she turned to Leo. Brother, I think I'll just have what's left of your noodle wrap. 3 chapters today, begging for comments and gifts. Faced with her beautiful sister-in-law's exquisitely handmade cookies, Annie Cakes expressed her solemn praise and sincere gratitude for her culinary skills. She also conveyed her infinite regret and disappointment at having to reluctantly miss out on this opportunity due to her recently developed sudden cookie allergy. If the campus doctor hadn't told me I'd have a fatal allergic reaction to cookies, I would have absolutely taken a bite of your masterpieces, sister-in-law, even if it meant breaking out in hives all over my body. Anna declare, her tone firm and resolute, as if she were ready to sacrifice everything for her sister-in-law. Claire was very moved. Besides Mrs. Fong and Mr. Chin, this was the third person to show such sincere appreciation for her cooking. The girl thought for a moment, then rummaged through her bag. Under Annie Cakes' stunned gaze, she pulled out another plastic bag. If it's just a cookie allergy. I also made some toast. As she spoke, Bertha Sue took out two seemingly ordinary slices of bread from the bag. She tapped them together. A familiar metallic, clanging sound echoed. Then, she smiled apologetically at her frozen-in-stone sister-in-law and explained, "Back in Northwood, when we went to the bakery, your mom taught me a few things. She said I had a talent for it, but she also said she didn't want me to work too hard, so I shouldn't just make things for anyone. You're the first person to try this." Anna, she turned to her brother in despair. "What on earth did your mom teach my sister-in-law?" Leo struggled to remain calm, his eyes conveying the message. "Don't ask me. I'm at the bottom of the food chain in my own house." Anna grew even more desperate. "Save me, save me." The young man nonchalantly turned his head and stared at the sky. "Ah, the sun is so sunny today." In the end, the unexpected savior was Marco Shaw. Both dorms had witnessed Bertha Sue's culinary skills before. Just looking at the cookies and toast and hearing that metallic clang made their scalps tingle. Holy crap, is that really edible? Wouldn't it be simpler to just pronounce the time of death instead of calling an ambulance? But just as disaster was about to strike Annie Cakes, a determined voice rang out. "Let me eat it." Everyone turned to look in shock. There stood Marco, his face a mask of steely resolve. "Bertha Sue, I'm hungry. I love toast. Let me try it." Before Claire could even react, Marco, with lightning-fast reflexes, snatched the plastic bag from her hand, grabbed the two slices of toast, and shoved them into his mouth. Then, with the grim determination of a martyr, he bit down. It sounded like teeth grinding against a steel plate. Marco's face began to twitch. The others couldn't help but cringe at the sound. But somehow, Marco managed to chew and swallow the entire thing without changing his expression. He even gave Claire a thumbs up. "Bertha Sue, you're amazing. Delicious." Bertha Sue, though surprised by the demand for her creations, was pleased by the compliment. She turned to her sister-in-law with a look of regretful comfort, promising to make some more for her next time. Just then, some other student from a school of business passed by and greeted Claire. She smiled and went over to chat with him for a moment. No longer able to hold on, Marco's body collapsed backward. Leon and Dylan quickly caught him, anxiously asking, "Marco, are you okay? Are you still alive?" Marco lay limply in his roommate's arms, his face a picture of misery. It felt like I was eating a pile of steel plates. The girls from room 205 were deeply moved. A hero saving the damsel in distress. "Marco, you're incredible." Even Anna felt a little grateful and guilty. She leaned in to check on him. "Thanks." Marco weakly lifted his head and looked at Anna with deep affection. "So, can you accept my heart now?" Annie Cakes replied with an apologetic but firm, "No." Then she added, "But there are a lot of pretty girls at East Bay Financial. I can introduce you to some later." In an instant, Marco was completely re-energized. He shot up with a perfect kip-up. "Deal." Anna had just come out to say hi to Leo and Claire, and in the process, she'd met everyone from room 205 and 520. Then, with a grilled noodle wrap that Leo had taken a few bites of, she bid them a hasty farewell. East Bay's semifinal match was the second one, but the team needed to use the time to run through a few more mock debates as a final preparation. Before she left, Anna looked at Leo and Claire, full of confidence. "Wait and see my performance. Remember to cheer for me." She then turned and left with a flourish. Leo, Claire, and their friend from the two dorms re-entered the lecture hall. By now, the first semifinal match of the Golden State Invitational was about to begin. University of California, Berkeley versus East Bay Foreign Language University. Marco had already provided the intel on Berkeley's team, 2 veterans and 2 rookies. The 2 freshmen weren't particularly noteworthy, but the senior, Lu Kai, was the team captain and a formidable debater. And then there was the junior, Felicity Fong, the former it girl of the humanities department, a woman of both talent and beauty. Playing on their home turf, the Berkeley team was met with a thunderous round of applause as they took the stage. Many of the male students were even shouting at the top of their lungs, "Felicity, we love you!" and "Go, Felicity, go!" Then it was the opposing team's turn. When the 4 stunningly beautiful girls from East Bay Foreign Language University walked up to their podiums, all smiles, their graceful figures standing tall, the entire lecture hall fell silent for a moment. Then, the Berkeley students erupted once more, this time with an even more fervent and boiling cheer. "East Bay girls, we love you. Go East Bay. Crush the other team." Such was the warm hospitality of the Berkeley student body. In the audience, the boys from room 520 were mesmerized, especially Marco, whose eyes were shining. Whoa, the intel was right. These girls from East Bay, each one is more beautiful than the last. Leo, looking at the girls on the opposing team, couldn't help but nod in agreement. They really are. Before he could finish, he felt several sharp, murderous glares. He seamlessly changed his tune. But then again, the beauties sitting right here with us are all goddesses in their own right. The girls from room 205 nodded in satisfaction, retracting their killing intent. Claire, sitting next to him, also released the fingers that had been gently pinching his earlobe. She smiled and patted his cheek. Not bad. Quick reflexes. On stage, the moderator finished his introductions. The members of both debate teams rose to greet the judges and the audience. Then, the moderator announced the topic for the first semifinal match of the Golden State Invitational Debate Tournament. The competition began. Berkeley versus East Bay Foreign Language University. The topic for today's debate was, does social media do more good than harm for the development of adolescents, or more harm than good? The internet in America had only really taken off in the last few years, but its growth had been explosive. All kinds of social media platforms were becoming more and more popular. The old guard included established blogging platforms like Blogger and a wide variety of forums and message boards. Then, a few years ago, a site called My Campus had exploded onto the scene, capturing a massive share of the student market and looking poised to dominate half the social media landscape. On stage, the debaters launched into their opening statements, their arguments clashing like swords. They traded points and counterpoints, neither side giving an inch. In the audience, a small fraction of the students followed the arguments thoughtfully. The vast majority, however, were just there for the show. Marco Shaw, for instance, had his eyes glued to the four beautiful female debaters from East Bay Foreign Language University from the very beginning. It was unclear how much he was actually hearing. He just kept nodding his head in a state of rapture. "Ah, so well said," he'd murmur. "That point is so pale. No, wait, that evidence is so supple." Leo listened for a few minutes before shaking his head slightly. Though they were talented debaters from a top university, they were still just students. Their understanding of the topic was ultimately limited. Both the affirmative and negative teams could only approach the issue from a relatively shallow perspective, rarely hitting the core of the matter. Still, the topic sparked something in him. As the newly appointed chief strategy officer for Happy Nest, the little ship he had just boarded was set to make a massive splash in late March, shaking the entire domestic internet. It would become the most explosive, talked-about social media platform of the year. And as fate would have it, the very platform both teams were using as an example. My Campus would be Happy Nest's biggest and most direct competitor in the years to come. Leo even remembered clearly from his past life that Happy Nest had lost its chance to go public precisely because it had failed in its competition with My Campus. And My Campus, which would later rebrand as the Quad, had successfully listed on the NYSE, its market value at one point reaching nearly $10 billion. The latter had soared to the heavens, becoming world famous. The former ate dust, exiting the stage in defeat. The wars of the internet might seem bloodless, but they were filled with hidden daggers. The moment Leo accepted David Cheng's invitation to join Happy Nest, he had been pulled onto this breathtaking, magnificent battlefield. The winner takes all. The loser is crushed to pieces. There was no warmth in the wars of business, only the cold, hard reality. At that moment, Leo was physically in a lecture hall at Berkeley, watching a debate. But his thoughts had drifted, and it was as if time and space had shifted. He was already standing on that grand, brutal battlefield of the internet. He could almost see the news reports from his past life replaying in his mind's eye. Happy Nest locked in a life-or-death struggle with its rivals. There were smiles that hid daggers, feigned ignorance masking deadly intent. There were moments when masks were torn off, revealing the cold steel beneath, and desperate counterattacks born from having no other way out. Countless pieces of information from his past life surged back, and his eyes narrowed subconsciously, a cool, calculating glint appearing within them. Strictly speaking, Happy Nest was a decent partner, but it wasn't one worth tying himself to completely. In his past life, the war between it and My Campus, the Quad, had been far too brutal. Happy Nest and David Cheng's ultimate defeat was due to their own mistakes, certainly, but it was mostly because their opponent was too powerful and had used too many vicious, lethal tactics, both overt and covert. As someone reborn, He had countless ways to make money. Even with his help, Happiness could avoid many pitfalls and correct its original flaws, reaching greater heights than before. But it would still inevitably collide with the massive battleship that was my campus. With his own foundations still shallow, tying himself to Happiness' small boat to go head-to-head with such a formidable enemy. Regardless of victory or defeat, it was bound to be a perilous path. It might not be the wisest choice. As his mind churned with calculations and strategies, he felt a soft warmth on the back of his right hand, which was resting on the armrest. The touch pulled him back to the present. He glanced down and saw that Claire's hand had, at some point, gently taken his. Leo was slightly taken aback. He turned his head and met her questioning, concerned gaze. He smiled and gave her a silent shake of his head, signaling that he was fine. Claire relaxed, returning his smile and giving his palm a gentle squeeze. Not a word was exchanged, but an unspoken understanding passed between the young couple. She then turned her head back to the stage, focusing intently on the debaters' clash of words. Leo, however, didn't look away. He quietly admired his girlfriend's profile, so exquisitely captivating in her focused state. He felt the warmth spreading from his right palm, a comforting heat that flowed through his heart. The hesitation and careful weighing of his future plans quietly melted away, replaced by a calm, resolute certainty. Being reborn certainly gave him an omniscient ability to judge situations. But if he spent this new life cautiously weighing every single step, he would lose the boldness he ought to possess. He was the man who was supposed to shield this girl from the wind and rain. If he couldn't even face a small storm like this head-on, what right would he have to stand in front of her in the future? Leo's eyes narrowed again. This time, they became as sharp and cold as a blade. He subconsciously sat up straighter, his posture as ramrod straight as a spear. An inexplicable, soul-shaking presence began to emanate from him. This subtle aura was so potent that even those nearby seemed to feel it. Many in the surrounding seats shifted uncomfortably, their expressions changing. What is that smell? Then reality hit, and a commotion broke out. Holy shit, who farted? Marco Shaw's face flushed red. He quickly clenched his cheeks and looked around, feigning innocence. Yeah, who did that? So messed up. He'd had too many of Leon's date cakes, plus one of Bertha Sue's signature handmade toasts. His stomach was feeling a little unsettled. The first semi-final match of the Golden State Invitational, after a fierce and brilliant clash between the two university teams, finally came to a close. The judges tallied their scores and announced the result. The University of California, Berkeley, had come out on top. Led by senior Liu Kai, they had defeated East Bay Foreign Language University and secured the victory. The hall erupted in thunderous applause. The Berkeley students cheered for their team. In the next second, a new thought began to stir. East Bay lost. As upstanding Berkeley students, it's only right for us to comfort the heartbroken girls from East Bay. A perfect demonstration of our magnanimity as hosts. Perfectly reasonable, right? Soon, it was time for the second match. Down in the audience, the friends from room 205 and room 520 were chatting. Isn't it East Bay Financial versus East Bay Polytech next? What's the topic for this round? Jade, who had a good memory, adjusted the black-rimmed glasses on her nose and answered, I think it's campus romance. The benefits outweigh the drawbacks versus the drawbacks outweigh the benefits. More tonight. Don't forget to send reminders and gifts. This year's Golden State Invitational wasn't using a strictly formal policy debate format. The topics of the semifinals were chosen to be more relatable to students' daily lives, making them easier and more fun to follow. The previous round, for instance, had explored the internet, a subject every student knew intimately, and analyzed the pros and cons of the social media they used every day. The topic for the second match was even more down-to-earth. Does campus romance do more good than harm, or more harm than good? The moment the moderator announced the topic, a wave of murmurs and excited chatter swept through the audience. Many students who had been dozing off during the last round were now wide awake. Holy shit. Now, this is an interesting topic. Talking about dating? We're definitely not sleepy for this. Immediately, students started shouting from their seats with mischievous grins. More good than harm. It's got to be more good than harm. Their calls were met with a wave of laughter and agreement. In the front rows, the friends from room 205 and room 520 were also intrigued. Damn, the organizers have some good ideas. This is some deep stuff. Marco slapped his thigh. What's there even to debate? He declared. Just announce the affirmative side as the winner and call it a day. Dating is obviously more good than harm. Beside him, Quinn shot him a withering look. You've been single all semester without a single serious relationship. What right do you have to talk, she scoffed. You're just a player who hits on every girl you see. You're not qualified to talk about love. Marco struck a righteous pose. I'm sincere with every girl. Every date is like a short-term romance to me. His roommates could take no more. They swarmed him in a mock beatdown. Bullshit, player. Nearby, Molly happily ate a piece of date cake fed to her by her boyfriend, offering her own innocent opinion. The affirmative side definitely has the advantage with a topic like this, right? Campus romance is so wonderful. Anyone who argues for the negative, that the drawbacks outweigh the benefits, must just be a single loser who can't find a date. Jade chuckled beside her and explained, the sides are chosen by a random draw. Whichever side you get, you have to argue for it. She paused, then added her own objective analysis. And with a topic like this, the affirmative isn't necessarily easier to argue than the negative. Leo, who was listening, nodded in agreement. He casually grabbed some date cake from Leon and fed it to Claire, while chiming in, the idea that the benefits outweigh the drawbacks is more emotionally appealing. But in a debate, you need logic and evidence. If you're just talking about reason and proof, the negative side, drawbacks outweighing benefits, is actually easier to demonstrate. The affirmative side relies more on emotional appeal, which is actually harder to pull off. His analysis made everyone nod. Quinn looked a little worried. So, you think Anna's team can win? Leo's lip twitched. She's a single Annie Cakes who's never been in a relationship in her life. What does she know about the pros and cons of campus romance? She's probably just using her imagination. While the two groups of friends were chatting, the debaters for the second match were already taking the stage and settling into their seats. The team from East Bay Polytechnic was composed of 4 engineering students. The moment they stood at their podiums, they radiated the bitter, resentful aura of the chronically single, perfectly matching their side of the argument. On the other side, the team from East Bay Financial University was a lineup of 2 men and 2 women. The first speaker was a pretty girl with delicate features, dressed in a tasteful and elegant outfit. The moment she appeared, the audience erupted in cheers. The crowd's support, it seemed, was shamelessly dictated by attractiveness. But when the third speaker, Anna, gracefully rose and introduced herself with a beaming smile, the entire lecture hall exploded. Countless students shot to their feet, their arms raised, roaring their support. Go, Anna. We're your biggest fans. A few Berkeley students looked on with disdain. Pathetic. You see one pretty girl, and you abandon all your principles. Where's our Berkeley pride? Where is our dignity? And where can I get Anna's phone number? Some students, sitting near Leo, took a more direct approach. They leaned over secretively, whispering to him, Leo, my man, ignore those guys. Where were we in our negotiations? An all-you-can-eat buffet gift certificate. I'll add another one. The bargaining was getting heated. Claire, sitting beside Leo, finally had enough. She leaned forward. Are you really selling out Annie Cakes? She asked. That's my dear sister-in-law. The Berkeley students, intimidated by Claire's frosty aura, fell silent. Leo felt a pang of shame and was about to apologize. But in the next second, he saw his girlfriend raise an eyebrow. Her expression calm as she said, So, this offer isn't nearly enough. You have to add more. Leo, ? The Berkeley students. A moment later, they snapped out of it, their faces lighting up as they eagerly raised their bids. We can negotiate. Anything is negotiable. I'll add $500. Just give us her contact info. While the couple was busy selling out their sister-in-law, the debate on stage had already begun. The first speakers from both sides delivered their opening statements. Then came the cross-examination phase, where they took turns questioning an opponent of their choice. When it was Anna's turn, the male debater from East Bay Polytech who stood up didn't even dare to look at her, completely stunned by her dazzling beauty. His answers were stammered and incoherent. Finally, Anna, with a gentle smile, asked him, Campus romance is a wonderful thing, isn't it? My dear opponent, you're still single, right? If you met a beautiful girl on campus, wouldn't your heart skip a beat? The question completely fried the guy's brain. Staring at Anna's radiant, flower-like smile, he was utterly captivated. Why, yes, it definitely would. His 3 teammates were horrified. Objection, judges. The other side is using underhanded tactics. This is a honey trap. During the free debate segment, the East Bay Polytech team regrouped, re-emphasizing their main point. Campus romance might be sweet in college, but we're not just talking about college today. If we're talking about high school, that's puppy love. A high school student's most important task is to study. If they get into a relationship, it will only distract them and hold both of them back. Therefore, The drawbacks absolutely outweigh the benefits. The debater's voice was firm and resolute. Then, from the East Bay financial team's side, Anna stood up, a calm smile on her face. My dear opponent, your view is too extreme and one-sided. Even high school romance isn't always the extreme case you're describing. She paused for a moment, her gaze sweeping casually over the audience below before a slight smile played on her lips. Speaking of which, I happen to know a couple. They were as thick as thieves in high school, and it didn't affect their studies at all. In the audience, a certain handsome young man, who had been enthusiastically negotiating, suddenly froze. He looked up, a flicker of doubt in his eyes. Why does that sound weirdly familiar? Third update, asking for reminders and gifts. Like brother, like sister. Down below, Leo Hammer, Wallace, and Bertha Sue were selling out his sister. Up on stage, Annie Cakes was using her brother and sister-in-law as ready-made debate material. Who cared about family bonds? Practicality was everything. Who says a high school relationship will negatively impact academics and progress? Anna asked, her voice elegant and confident. The couple I know suddenly became inseparable 2 months before their final exams. They ate together, went to the convenience store together, watched the stars from the school roof, and took the bus home together. She spoke with poise, rattling off details of certain couples' high school history as if she had memorized them, her examples flowing effortlessly. Down in the audience, Leo felt more and more uneasy. He turned to Claire. Wait a minute. This sounds way too familiar. Is she talking about us? Claire stared straight ahead, her voice perfectly composed. Of course not. We weren't dating in high school. On stage, Anna smiled at the East Bay Polytech debaters and continued. And what was the result? That certain pig-headed, my male friend, saw his grades shoot up from the bottom of the class to #1 in the year in just 2 months. He was the salutatorian, and my sister in. My female friend, ended up as the valedictorian. They both got into Berkeley. Her summary was delivered with a resounding finality. Down in the audience, Leo's face was dark with indignation. She's totally talking about us. Annie Cakes is slandering us. When were we ever dating in high school? We were just in a perfectly reasonable deskmate relationship. Claire patted his hand comfortingly, her expression unchanging. Exactly. So she can't possibly be talking about us. It's just a coincidence. While the couple colluded below, the debaters from East Bay Polytech on stage quickly mounted a counterattack. Even if such a thing happened, the example our opponent gives can only be considered an isolated case. Furthermore, if we were to allow and condone this kind of high school romance, the existence of one such couple would actually have a worse influence on other, ordinary students who don't have the same level of willpower and self-control. You might be happy in your relationship, but what if others follow your example and end up failing both academically and romantically? Their argument was also well-reasoned, but Anna was clearly prepared. She rose gracefully, a gentle smile on her face. My dear opponents, don't be so hasty. When I say campus romance has its benefits, I'm not suggesting everyone should rush into a relationship. It's simply natural for people who genuinely like each other to be together. Moreover, the kind of campus romance my side advocates for needs to be positive. The goal is to be happy together while, of course, not having a negative influence on others. The East Bay Polytech debaters immediately objected. That's impossible. And it didn't blink. Who says it's impossible? The couple I just mentioned is a perfect example. They were perfectly happy in their own relationship and didn't corrupt the school's atmosphere in the slightest. The Polytech team scoffed. According to you, they were stuck together all day, from meals to classes to going home. They practically broadcasted their relationship to the world. You call that not having a big influence? Anna smiled radiantly. Not all. They were classmates and deskmates in high school. While they were being sweet to each other, in the eyes of outsiders, everything they did was perfectly open and above board, with nothing to criticize. A deskmate bringing breakfast and happening to have an extra serving by coincidence. Perfectly reasonable, right? And going home together after school because they're afraid of the dark and looking out for each other, a show of deskmate friendship. That's reasonable too. As for watching the stars together or holding hands, well, that was all just coincidence and perfectly reasonable. They got to be sweet to each other without negatively affecting the other students. It's a win-win. Everyone's happy. Her words were delivered with unruffled confidence. One casual coincidence after another, followed by a casual reasonable. The Berkeley students in the audience found it all sounding more and more familiar. One by one, they turned to look at Leo Hammer and Bertha Sue, their expression strange. Damn, why does all of this sound so familiar? Meanwhile, the debaters from East Bay Polytech were completely floored. When they finally came to their senses, they were practically sputtering with indignation. What kind of nonsense is our opponent spouting? Are the students and teachers in that high school all idiots? They couldn't see through such a flimsy disguise? How is any of that reasonable? With his last sentence, the fourth speaker and captain of the Polytech team threw his arms up in a gesture of desperate appeal, trying to rally the audience to his side. It failed. The audience was silent for a moment. Then, the Berkeley students began to exchange strange, complicated looks before slowly nodding. It's reasonable. Actually, it's pretty reasonable. Yeah, nothing wrong with that. A chorus of reasonable rippled through the crowd. The East Bay Polytech captain? ? The entire Polytech team was stunned. Wait, is this Berkeley's home field or East Bay Financials? How can this kind of bullshit get a round of approval from the audience? This is reasonable? What kind of damn high school would believe this ridiculous couple's reasonable routine? In the next moment, they saw Anna, on the opposing side, smile serenely. My dear opponents, perhaps you're just not well informed, she said, her voice calm and clear. This kind of thing is pretty normal in Northwood. It's a local custom. In the end, after the judges' scores were tallied, the affirmative team from East Bay Financial University defeated their opponents and won the match. The audience erupted in enthusiastic cheers and applause. The defeated members of the East Bay Polytech team walked off the stage, their faces pale and dejected. In terms of actual, logical arguments, both teams had been evenly matched. But during the free debate segment, they had been completely thrown off their game by that one girl from East Bay Financial. Their rhythm was shattered, and their performance in that segment cost them dearly, leading to their loss. Even now, the Polytech team members felt dazed, filled with indignant confusion. What the hell was that? She just made up some random bullshit example, and we lost to that kind of cheap trick? They all felt the loss was unfair and deeply unsatisfying. As they were leaving, some Berkeley students walked by and sympathetically patted them on the shoulder. You guys did great. It's no shame to lose like that. Who could have expected them to pull out a trump card like the Northwood custom and the reasonable defense? The Polytech debaters were at first grateful for the kind words, but the last sentence left them stunned. Is that Northwood custom thing real? They asked, barely able to believe their ears. Just then, a Berkeley student sidled up to them conspiratorially, a sacred glow on his face. Friends, would you be interested in joining our organization? The Anti-Northwood Faith. Our motto is to hell with Northwood High. Dazed and confused, the members of the East Bay Polytech team hesitated for a moment, but then, clenching their jaws, they nodded fiercely. Fine, to hell with it. And so, the list of Northwood High's enemies grew even longer. The debate tournament ended, and the students began to file out of the lecture hall. Marco spotted the pretty girls from the East Bay Foreign Language University debate team leaving through a side door. He immediately grabbed Dylan and rushed over to make his move. Quinn, Molly, and the other girls were initially confused. He's going to hit on them, fine. But why is he dragging Dylan along? Is he going to use sign language? The next second, the truth was revealed. Marco approached the girls, his face wreathed in smiles as he greeted them, pulling Dylan to his side. Hello, ladies. My name is Marco Shaw. This is my roommate who has a terminal illness. He's so sick he can't even speak anymore. His one and only dying wish is to get your phone numbers. Dylan, with practiced skill, began to gesture in sign language. The girls from room 205 watched, utterly stunned, a new level of respect dawning on their faces. Whoa, you can do that. Jade adjusted her glasses, offering an appreciative critique. That's what you call recycling. Just then, Anna came bouncing over to find Leo and Claire. The moment she saw them, she was practically bursting with excitement. So, I did great, didn't I? Leo looked at his foolish younger sister, his expression strained. You used our story as your evidence, didn't you? And you maliciously exaggerated it. Annie cakes, do you know that slander? He righteously admonished. Anna shot him a sideways glance. And I suppose a certain someone in the audience was having a grand old time trading my contact info with other people? You think I didn't see that? Leo's expression instantly changed. Of course, on the other hand, he said smoothly, we're brother and sister. Using each other for a little dramatic effect is no big deal. Let's not get caught up in the details. Anna huffed, but didn't press the issue. She turned to Claire, eagerly seeking praise. Sister-in-law, was I good? Do I get a reward? Claire nodded and thought for a moment. How about I cook for you at noon? She was still thinking about how Marco had snatched the toast earlier and how her sister-in-law had sadly missed out. Her sister-in-law had come all this way. As the older sister, she felt she had to do something special. Anna? Question mark. The expression on her face froze. She struggled to maintain a calm, natural look. Oh, sister-in-law, you're too kind. Cooking yourself is so much trouble. A grand reception like that should be reserved for someone on the level of the Queen of England. To be honest, my performance wasn't that good. I'm not worthy of such a heavy reward. Really, I'm not, haha. She let out a forced, dry laugh and quickly changed the subject. Hey, it's getting late. Let's go check out your love nest. The single slaughterhouse, right? Let's go home. I haven't even seen it yet. Leo corrected her sternly. What single slaughterhouse? When you're outside, you call it the LNS house. Anna grabbed her brother and sister-in-law by the hand and pulled them eagerly towards the exit. I know. The slaughterhouse villa. Let's go. On the way to the LNS house, Anna stared out the car window at the increasingly coastal scenery, sighing with envy. Her university, East Bay Financial, was in the old part of the city, and she rarely had a chance to visit the coast this far out. Seeing it now, she couldn't help but mutter that she'd wasted her 2.5 years in the city. When they arrived and entered the front yard of the LNS house, Anna was stunned once again. This is the slaughterhouse villa. She walked through the house, marveling at everything. Wow, this yard. Wow, this living room. Wow, this fireplace. Wow, this parrot. Hey, there's a parrot. As they opened the door, Reasonable came fluttering out of his cage. The chubby parrot, seeing so many guests for the first time, let out a series of loud, enthusiastic squawks. Hello, beautiful ladies. Hello, beautiful ladies. Marco and Leon were amazed. Whoa, this parrot is pretty smart. Reasonable turned to look at the 3 guys from room 520 and squawked in surprise. Whoa, 3 monkeys. Then he saw the hulking, muscular frame of Leon and jumped. Whoa, a gorilla. The girls all burst out laughing. Compared to the others, this was Anna's first time at the LNS house. She excitedly grabbed Claire and had her sister-in-law give her a grand tour. Leo greeted everyone and then went straight into the kitchen to start cooking. The others were already familiar with the place. They plopped down on the couch and turned on the TV or headed over to the pool table to challenge each other to a game. Everyone found something to do. By the time Leo was finished in the kitchen and had brought a feast of dishes to the dining table, everyone was seated and ready. They clasped their hands together and recited their customary chant, "Praise be to Chef Leo," before digging in. During the meal, Anna was still filled with envy. This is the life of the gods, she sighed. No, even the gods wouldn't trade this life for theirs. She turned to Claire, her eyes wide with hope. Sister-in-law, seriously, don't be so rigid about gender. What do you say you dump that pig-headed Leo and live with me instead? Anything he can do, I can do. Molly's eyes lit up. Wow, a lesbian romance plotline? Is this something I'm allowed to ship? From room 520, Marco was already defending his roommate. Annie Cakes, you're out of line. Our boy Leo is a top-tier man. He cooked for Sister Bertha every single day. You can't replace those cooking skills. Anna pouted, unconvinced. It's just cooking. I could do everything else. Claire smiled gently and reached out, generously taking her friend and sister-in-law's hand. All right, we'll dump him, and you and I will live together. I'll do the cooking. That one sentence was more effective than 10,000 arguments. Anna flinched. She forced a calm expression and slowly pulled her hand back from her sister-in-law's. You know what? On second thought, I think you two should stay together. I'm actually fine being single. Hopefully more tonight. Sadly asking for reminders and gifts. The villa was nice, but her life was more important. The thought of her beautiful sister-in-law's colorful, multi-hued culinary creations sent a cold shiver down Anna's spine. Steeling herself, she righteously and politely declined the invitation for the two of them to live together. The lesbian romance plotline died before it even began. The only person who seemed disappointed was Molly. The romance novel enthusiast usually only got to see beautiful female pairings in her books. If the 2 campus beauties at the table in front of her got together, how wonderful would that be? She'd even come up with a title for their story: The Daily Life of the Aloof Campus Queen and Her Loyal Puppy Sister-in-Law. Wow, it sounds like a bestseller already. What a shame, what a shame. As they ate, the group chatted idly. The friends from both dorms were intensely curious about Anna, peppering her with gossip-fueled questions. They asked about the nature of her and Leo's sibling relationship, and why she, a junior at East Bay Financial, was somehow the younger sister. They pried into her love life. They even went so far as to ask for her height and measurements. Marco, who asked the last question, was promptly kicked under the table by Quinn and Jade to reflect on his actions. Anna answered all the other questions with a cheerful smile, explaining everything. The friends from both dorms listened, their understanding dawning, and they looked at Leo with renewed awe and disbelief. Leo, you dog. You've been surrounded by beautiful girls your whole life, haven't you? A childhood sweetheart for a sister, a high school and college classmate for a girlfriend. And they're all drop-dead gorgeous. Do you have some kind of girl-attracting aura? Marco, who had just been kicked, shamelessly climbed back to the table and sidled up to Leo. Leo, my man, let's make a deal. Let me borrow that aura of yours sometime. Leo thought about it. It did seem a little uncanny. Leaving aside Bertha Sue and Annie Cakes, since starting college, he'd also had unexpected run-ins with department girls like Lily Lou and Isabella Zhao. Did he really have the aura of a novel protagonist? Then again, with his rich life experience, he probably could write a novel. What would be a good title? After I was reborn, the aloof campus queen chased me, but so did all the other department beauties. He was getting into it, seriously considering whether he should start a novel on Scrollverse. Then he suddenly felt the air beside him grow cold. He snapped back to reality and saw his girlfriend's slightly narrowed eyes and a smile that wasn't quite a smile. What are you thinking about? Leo instantly became the picture of righteousness. Nothing. What stupid aura? It doesn't exist. My aura only needs to attract one person, and that's enough. He quickly and eagerly placed a piece of food in his girlfriend's bowl. Here, try this. I made these braised chicken wings especially for you. Behold, the survival instincts of a mature boyfriend. After lunch, the afternoon sun was bright and the temperature was perfect. The girls decided they wanted to go for a walk on the beach and take some pictures. They asked the guys from room 520 for their opinion. But Leo had already made plans to discuss the browser game's design outline with the author, Potato, so he needed to spend the afternoon refining the proposal. He didn't have much free time. As for the other three from room 520, the date cake guy, Leon, was unwaveringly loyal. He immediately followed his girlfriend's lead, grabbing a camera and a small bag of date cake snacks, ready to go. Marco and Dylan, however, weren't interested. Boys, in general, weren't that enthusiastic about scenery and photo shoots. They were full and getting sleepy. When they heard Leo had just bought 2 new high-end laptops, their interest was piqued. So, in the end, it was Leon who went out with the girls. Before she left, Claire didn't forget to come back and give her boyfriend a kiss, smiling as she said, "Don't work too hard." The others who witnessed this rolled their eyes, groaning from the overdose of PDA. "Stop it, please, just stop. We can't take any more." The group split up. Leo, Dylan, and Marco were the only ones left in the LNS house. Leo went into the study, and the 2 Gotham brothers followed, eager to check out the new computers. When they saw the 2 brand-new, high-end laptops on the desk, Marco and Dylan's eyes lit up. They pounced on them, admiring them lovingly. "Whoa, these just came out this year, right? I remember they're crazy expensive." "Leo, you really know how to spend money." Leo sat down and replied casually, "They're pretty expensive. Claire paid for them." His words stunned the 2 brothers once again. They stood there, speechless, looking from the laptops to Leo, their faces a mask of utter despair. "Damn it. Dylan, let's go. We can't stay in this house anymore." They turned and stormed out in a huff. This single slaughterhouse. Every time they came, they were abused. The PDA just kept getting more creative. With Dylan and Marco gone, Leo was finally alone in the study. He pulled his laptop over, turned it on, and, out of habit, logged into his AIM account. He glanced at his buddy list. Potato, the author of Battle Through the Heavens, had a gray icon. He was either invisible or offline. Leo sent him a quick message. Then he closed the chat window and opened another one for a user named Isabella Dazed. They had exchanged phone numbers a while back and added each other on AIM for work communication, or more accurately, so Leo could remotely assign tasks to his number 1 workhorse. He opened the chat and typed out a familiar message. "How's the progress?" Her icon was gray, but she was just invisible. A reply came back almost instantly. I'm drawing. Don't rush me." It was accompanied by an angry, red-faced emoji. Leo couldn't help but chuckle. He had just given her the assignment a couple of days ago. The detailed task list he'd sent over had completely stunned the department's girl. It took her a long time to reply, with a string of question marks. The workload was ridiculously huge, and to top it off, he had added a note at the end of the document. It would be best if you could get a first batch of drafts done within half a month. A few dozen should be fine. That one casual sentence had almost sent Isabella into a state of shock. "A few dozen? Why don't you just ask for my life?" Third update. Daily request for reminders and gifts. Honestly, at the very beginning, Isabella Zhao had been suspicious of her new boss. He had painted a grand picture for her, his words filled with righteous conviction. But this trickster had fooled her many times before. Who knew which of his words were true? In their 2 meetings, he had slammed her with 3 solid shoulder throws. She had been thoroughly outmaneuvered and still only knew his name was Kevin Zhao. What if he was just using this job as another ploy? Isabella had seen plenty of guys at school who approached her with high-minded excuses but were actually driven by ulterior motives. In the end, they were all after her looks and her title as the department's it girl. Isabella wasn't overly vain, but she was aware of the devastating effect her appearance had on most guys. So, naturally, she had come to a conclusion. Could this Kevin Zhao be using the pretense of hiring her to draw for him as a way to get close to her and pursue her? However, that suspicion and worry completely vanished the day he sent her that task list, because there was no way in hell someone would give a girl this much work if they were trying to date her. The moment she saw the task list, Isabella was stunned. She read it over and over, confirming that it wasn't a mistake. He really did expect her to finish a third of it in 2 weeks, and to have all the drafts done and possibly even finalized within 2 months. It was enough to leave Ms. Dazed, utterly dazed for a full 3 minutes. When she tried to protest, the handsome jerk had casually replied, "A salary of $1,800 a week isn't for nothing, you know?" The word stuck in her throat. So, for the past 2 days, the department's it girl hadn't had a moment's rest. She was working against the clock, sweating profusely. She barely had time to sleep at night. And even then, her cruel, heartless boss would send messages from time to time to check on her progress. It made Isabella grind her teeth in frustration, but she could only swallow her grievances and carry on. Now, there was no doubt in her mind. This guy wasn't some suitor with ulterior motives. No, this guy wasn't even human. He was a super explosive, invincible, evil, cold-blooded capitalist. As she tearfully worked on her drawings, Isabella gnashed her teeth and cursed him in her heart. Kevin Zhao, I'll remember this. I will get my revenge. In the study at the LNS house, Leo had no idea what his newly appointed one and only employee was plotting. He knew the workload he had assigned was heavy, but it wasn't impossible. Treating a lady with tenderness, in his normal life, he would always be a gentleman. But when it came to work, all of that was off the table. Leo Wallace only cared about ability. A weekly salary of $1,800 during trial period was no small sum. Although he had been the one to invite her, Isabella Zhao needed to prove with her actions that she was worth it. Besides, if she proved her skills and competence, that salary was just an appetizer. Not only would she get a raise, but when the browser game launched, he, as the boss, would not be stingy with bonuses and profit sharing. Then again, Isabella was pretty easy to fool. Maybe he wouldn't even need to offer huge bonuses. A raise of a few thousand a month might be enough to make her ecstatic. What? Tricking and bullying a young woman? Don't be ridiculous. He, the great Leo Hammer, wasn't some heartless capitalist. The bonus distribution was handled by Kevin Zhao. What did that have to do with Leo Wallace? After briefly checking in on the progress of his one-person art team, Leo refocused his attention on the game's design document, further refining the details and fleshing out the various settings. Just then, his AI buddy list lit up. Potato's icon went from gray to green, and a message came through. "I'm here." A smile spread across Leo's face. Another target for his schemes was online. Time to get back to work. He immediately sent his newly revised design outline to the author of Battle Through the Heavens. On the other end of the chat, Potato read through it carefully. His first reaction was a string of massive exclamation points. Then came a flood of amazed remarks. "Dude, are you sure we don't share a brain? A lot of these settings are things I just came up with while sitting on the toilet the last couple of days. And you've already got them typed up in the outline? This is incredible." On his end, Leo remained perfectly calm and typed back without batting an eye. "We're soulmates. It's perfectly reasonable for soulmates to have a little telepathy." Potato completely bought it. "You're right, dude. Reasonable. Totally reasonable." Potato truly began to see Leo as a kindred spirit. The more they talked, the more he felt like they had known each other forever. The two soulmates then had an enthusiastic discussion about the design document, exchanging ideas and further refining the content. They talked for over half an hour before reluctantly saying goodbye and logging off. Leo stood up from his desk, stretched, and walked out of the study to get a glass of water. As he entered the living room, he saw Dylan and Marco finishing a game of pool. The two Gotham brothers were equally terrible at the game, making them evenly matched opponents. After the game, they showered each other with praise, then decided they were bored. Seeing Leo, they called out to him. "Leo, you done with your work? Can we borrow your computer?" The novel we're following should have updated today. In 2008, mobile reading hadn't really taken off yet. Most web novel readers were still used to renting physical books from stores or reading on websites using a computer. Leo casually agreed and let his two roommates head into the study while he went to the kitchen for water. He had just finished pouring a glass of hot water and was about to leave the kitchen when he heard a sudden shout from the study. Holy shit! It was Marco. Then came an even more shocked shout from Dylan. Holy shit! A question mark popped over Leo's head. What were those two doing in there, singing in harmony? He walked over, glass in hand. In the study, he saw the two Gotham brothers sitting at his desk, staring at the laptop screen, their jaws hanging open. What's wrong? Leo asked, confused. At the sound of his voice, Dylan and Marco snapped back to reality. Marco looked up, his face a picture of shock, as if he'd seen a ghost. Leo, you wrote Battle Through the Heavens. Dylan was so shocked he could barely speak, his voice trembling. Why you're a potato? As it turned out, the novel that Marco and Dylan wanted to read on Leo's laptop was, by sheer coincidence, Battle Through the Heavens. It all started the previous week on the bus ride to the new campus. Leo had casually described the plot of Battle Through the Heavens to his classmates, and it had completely captivated all the guys and even a good number of the girls on the bus. His two roommates from room 520 were no exception. So, since that day, they had found the novel online and devoured it from the beginning. They had binged all 4 or 500,000 words in just a day or two, staying up all night. Now, they were in the most painful phase, waiting for updates. With any other novel, seasoned readers like Marco and Dylan would have just let the chapters accumulate and then binge them all at once. But Battle Through the Heavens was different. It was addictive. It was the kind of book you couldn't put down. The moment you finished one chapter, you were desperately waiting for the next. Today, while hanging out at the LNS house, they were still thinking about the latest update. Figuring it was about time, they had eagerly gone into the study and sat down at Leo's laptop to check. That's when they noticed the Word document minimized in the taskbar. At first, the title, Battle Through the Heavens design outline, just made them curious. They figured their roommate was just a diehard fan. Reading the novel is one thing, but making notes on it? Intrigued, they maximized the document and started reading. As they read, their eyes grew wider and wider until they were practically bulging out of their sockets. This wasn't some reader's notes. This was the complete, detailed outline for the rest of the novel. Plot points that hadn't been released yet, character settings, even new types of heavenly flames. It was all there in the document. Who could possibly know this much about the complete plot of the novel? There was only one explanation. Looking at their roommate who had just walked into the study, Marco and Dylan's eyes lit up. Leo, you sneaky bastard. The jig is up. Time to reveal yourself. You're the heavenly potato. It took a while for Leo to figure out what was going on. What are you talking about? He said, exasperated. I'm not potato. He explained the situation to them, leaving Marco and Dylan completely baffled. A browser game, a design proposal. You bought the IP rights to Battle Through the Heavens. It was too much information to process. It took the two of them a while to finally accept it. When they did, they looked at Leo as if he were some kind of deity. You were doing all this behind our backs. And you bought the rights? How much did that even cost? Making a game, buying intellectual property rights. These were concepts that felt incredibly distant and foreign to college freshmen. Even after Leo's explanation, it all still felt unreal, like a dream. Leo smiled. Not much. The novel wasn't that popular when I bought it. Marco nodded in understanding. Then he got excited again. Well, Leo, you've hit the jackpot. I'll bet Dylan's love life for the rest of his days that this novel is going to blow up. It's so good. Dylan, however, was more concerned about something else. So, you know the heavenly potato? You have his contact info. Leo nodded. Yeah, we're AM buddies. We were just chatting. At that, Marco and Dylan's eyes lit up again. They leaned in eagerly. So, could you pass on a message to the great potato for us? Leo was puzzled. A message? What is it? In the next second, the faces of the two Gotham brothers twisted into identical snarls of frustration. Tell him to stop messing around and slacking off. And hurry. Up. And update. In the evening, the girls and Leon returned from the beach, all looking happy and satisfied. They had probably taken a lot of great pictures. They flopped onto the couch, sharing and admiring the photos on their phones and cameras, letting out occasional oohs and ahs. Leon, however, was uncharacteristically drained. He collapsed onto another couch, looking completely wiped out. What's wrong, Leon? Leo and the others asked, concerned. You look exhausted. Here, have a date cake to get your energy back. They handed him his signature snack. But even the date cake couldn't revive him. So, tired, he mumbled weakly. Going out with a group of girls to take pictures is more exhausting than a full day at the gym. Meanwhile, on the other couch, the girls were looking through their photos, still wanting more. I feel like we didn't take enough pictures. We should have taken more group shots. Then they turned to Leo, Marco and the others. Let's all go to the beach again tomorrow. Leo and the others flinched and shook their heads vigorously. No, we can't. We're busy tomorrow. Kevin's mom is having another baby. That night, they had hot pot for dinner. Everyone gathered around the table as the pot bubbled, sending up fragrant steam. During the meal, Marco and Dylan told everyone about Leo's plan to start a business making a browser game. Everyone was amazed. Anna looked at Leo, puzzled. You have a knack for business, Leo? Since when? Quinn, on the other hand, was full of praise. Wow, Leo, that's amazing. We're all still just freshmen, and you're already starting a business. Leo just smiled. It's nothing, just giving it a try. If I don't work hard, how am I going to support my wife in the future? His comment was met with a chorus of long, teasing oaths from around the table. Marco shook his head, sighing dramatically. That's our Leo. He could be living the easy life, but he still wants to work hard to support Sister Bertha. A role model for our generation. Claire was also smiling. She looked at Leo, her eyes soft and warm, and reached out to take his hand, giving it a gentle squeeze. It's okay. I'm easy to take care of. And if you can't, I'll support you. Marco made a face and turned to Leon. Leon, you should take notes. You can't just feed Molly date cakes all the time. You need to do something impressive too. Leon scratched his head, looking embarrassed. I'm not as smart as Leo. I can't do anything that big. But I'll definitely give Molly the best of everything. His honest words were more touching than any flowery declaration of love. Molly beamed and took her boyfriend's large hand, puffing out her chest proudly. He doesn't need to do anything big. I love date cakes. Their display of affection earned another round of teasing from the group. Leo watched them with a smile, an idea forming in his mind. Maybe he should put an Easter egg for the two of them in the Battle Through the Heavens game. A new type of heavenly flame. If he were to make a date cake into a heavenly flame, what would he call it? More tonight. Requesting reminders and gifts. Has everyone started their vacation yet? After a satisfying meal, everyone pitched in to clear the table. They ended up on the living room couches, sipping beers and chatting, the atmosphere lively and warm. Time slipped by, and, as night fell, the friends from both dorms got up to leave. Soon, only the master and mistress of the singles slaughterhouse and Anna were left. The two women hadn't had enough to drink earlier. Now that everyone was gone, Anna called for Leo to bring out some red wine, saying she wanted to have a few more glasses with her sister-in-law. Claire smilingly agreed. For her, this scene was one she had experienced many times in her past life, a memory both warm and nostalgic. But in her previous life, when the two sisters-in-law drank together late at night, there was always a sense of desolation and loneliness. This life was different. On the couch, Claire turned slightly to look towards the kitchen. Her gaze fell on Leo opening the small wine cabinet, selecting a bottle of red wine, and taking 2 glasses from the rack beside it. The boy's figure was gradually maturing into that of a young man, handsome and cool, radiating a reassuring sense of reliability. A warmth flowed through Claire's heart, and a soft smile touched her lips. Things had finally changed. In this life, he was by her side. It was wonderful. When Leo returned with the wine and glasses and handed them to her, Claire took them and said with a smile, "Thank you." Then, the girl on the couch straightened up, leaned forward, and, right in front of her sister-in-law, pressed a kiss to his lips. Leo was caught off guard. When he recovered, he felt a little awkward. What was that for? Annie Cakes is still here. Claire bit her lower lip, her eyes shimmering with a captivating allure. It's fine. She's family. From the side, Anna's voice dripped with resentment. What do you mean, family? You two just don't see me as a person at all. Leo had intended to sit with them for a drink, but before he could, his phone rang. He looked at the screen. It was David Chung from Happy Nest again. With the website's launch imminent, communication between him and his chief strategy officer had become increasingly frequent, with at least 3 calls a day. Leo excused himself to Claire and Anna, answered the phone, and walked towards the study. Watching him go, Anna pouted, surprised. That guy, he's pretty busy for a college student. Claire also watched her boyfriend's back as he walked to the study, a smile on her face. Someone's determined not to live off his girlfriend. He wants to earn money to support his wife. Anna nearly choked on that mouthful of PDA. Stop, please stop. I really can't take any more. But then she looked around at the increasingly cozy and warm decor of the LNS house and sighed. This is so nice. Sensing her friend and sister-in-law's mood, Claire smiled faintly. Then you should hurry up and find a boyfriend too. I'll buy you a house, and we can be neighbors here. A villa, given away just like that. The casual power of a sterling. If it had been any other topic, Anna would have been overjoyed. But at this particular subject, she just swirled the wine in her glass, staring into the liquid, and gave a wistful smile. I think I'll pass. Like I said before, I've already lost the ability to like someone. Her tone was light, but tinged with a cold, lonely air. From the birdcage hanging on a nearby stand, a certain chubby parrot pursed its beak and let out a loud squawk. My ass! My ass! My ass! Claire looked over surprised. Reasonable is still awake. Anna shot a dark, menacing look at the parrot. Maybe he's hungry, she suggested to her sister-in-law. Don't you still have some of those breadcrumb remnants? Don't let them go to waste. Feed them to him. In the cage, Reasonable flinched. The bird instantly started flapping its wings in a panic, hopping up and down. Not hungry. Not hungry. Not hungry. Bad woman. Bad woman. Bad woman. With the website launch so close, David Chung was under immense pressure. The phone call with Leo lasted for a full half hour. Even at the end, he was reluctant to hang up, asking when Leo would have time next week to visit the company one last time before the official launch. Leo agreed. After hanging up, he came out of the study and found the living room had fallen silent. Puzzled, he walked over to the couch. As he got closer, he couldn't help but chuckle. The two girls had apparently gotten drunk and were now huddled together, fast asleep. The scene was enough to make any man's eyes pop. Two stunning beauties, nestled together, their long legs intertwined, one's head resting comfortably on the other's chest. One could easily write tens of thousands of beautiful words about it, words that would be promptly redacted for decency's sake. But Leo just smiled, a warmth spreading through his heart. The two on the couch. One was the only woman he had ever loved across 2 lifetimes, the other was the sister he had grown up with. They were both incredibly important to him. It was strange. The classic in-law conflict that others seemed to face were completely absent here. These two were so close. It was as if they had been sisters-in-law in a past life. He shook his head, clearing his thoughts. He leaned forward and gently nudged his girlfriend, whispering her name. Then he reached over and poked his foolish sister's forehead. Neither of them stirred. They were sound asleep. With a helpless sigh, Leo scooped his girlfriend up into his arms and started up the stairs to take her to their room. He was careful not to wake her or bump her into anything. Looking down at the sweet, peaceful expression on her sleeping face, he couldn't resist smiling and leaning in to kiss her lips. After gently placing her on the bed in the master bedroom, he went back downstairs. Looking at his sister, who was sprawled messily on the couch, he sighed again. With sleeping habits like that, how is she ever going to find a boyfriend? He grumbled internally, then expertly lifted her into his arms and carried her upstairs to the guest room. On the way, he glanced at Anna's peaceful, sleeping face and smiled again. She only looked this cute and innocent when she was asleep. He'd have to tease her about it tomorrow. And in the next second, thump, a dull thud. Lost in thought, he hadn't been paying attention, and Anna's head had accidentally bumped into the newel post of the staircase. In her drunken stupor, Anna winced in pain and her eyebrows furrowed, almost opening her eyes. But then she settled back into a deep sleep. Leo's heart nearly stopped. It took him a long moment to recover. He checked again and again to make sure she was still asleep. He let out a huge sigh of relief. But when he gently touched her head, he found a small bump was already forming. Leo. He took a deep breath, trying to remain calm as he carried the injured party the rest of the way to her room, his eyes wide with shock. Heaven knows, earth knows, but no one else can ever know about this. Third update. Daily requests for reminders and gifts. Has everyone started their vacation yet? The next day, Sunday morning, the aroma of fresh porridge wafted from the kitchen of the LNS house. Leo emerged with a tray of breakfast, setting the plates and bowls on the dining table. Sorry for the wait. The two women were already seated. Anna was holding her head, a pained expression on her face. Ugh, my head hurts. Leo's hand froze for a split second. Claire looked at her sister-in-law with concern. Did you drink too much last night? Anna shook her head miserably, looking just as confused. That doesn't make sense. I didn't drink that much. My tolerance is better than that. Claire frowned, trying to figure it out. Maybe you hit your head on something while you were sleeping? She turned to her boyfriend. Do you know anything? Leo, who had just sat down, stiffened slightly before forcing a nonchalant expression. Didn't hear anything, didn't see anything, don't know anything. She's always been a terrible sleeper. She must have bumped it herself. Anyway, let's stop investigating and just eat. He quickly changed the subject, eagerly piling food into the injured party's bowl. Here, eat up. You're too skinny. Anna was bewildered by his sudden attentiveness. Then a thought struck her, and she eyed him suspiciously. Wait a minute. You didn't bump my head on something last night, did you? Leo didn't even blink. Of course not, he said righteously. What kind of brother would be so incompetent as to bump his drunk sister's head on something like, say, a stair banister? That would be completely irresponsible. The meal passed without further incident. After breakfast, the couple planned to take Anna for a walk around the Berkeley campus. As they were leaving, they passed the living room. Anna saw the parrot in its cage and suddenly leaned in close. "What happened last night? Did you see anything?" Leo, who was walking by, felt his heart nearly stop. In the cage, Reasonable glanced at his male owner, then at Anna. The bird puffed out its chest righteously. Saw nothing. Saw nothing. Nothing happened. Nothing happened. Anna was still skeptical. She brought her face even closer, her nose almost touching the bars of the cage, her beautiful eyes narrowing dangerously. "Are you sure?" The parrot instinctively scrambled backwards until its back was pressed against the far side of the cage, trying its best to look calm. "Sure, sure, sure." Anna stared. Stare. JPG. Reasonable. Finally, Anna gave up. She turned and walked away. "Fine. I'll believe you this time." In that moment, both the parrot in the cage and the man outside let out a simultaneous, massive sigh of relief. They turned and looked at each other. Reasonable flapped its wings, proudly demanding its reward. "I want porn. I want porn. I want porn." Leo agreed without a second thought. "I'll get it for you tonight. The Animal Planet Parrot Special." The three of them took a bus to Berkeley. Claire and Anna walked on a campus arm in arm, immediately drawing countless stunned and amazed stares. One was Berkeley's freshman campus queen. The other was the reigning goddess of East Bay Financial for the past 3 years. The two of them walking together was easily the most beautiful sight the campus had ever seen. Many people recognized Claire, but seeing Anna by her side, they were even more shocked. They had thought Claire's beauty was unrivaled, but this girl was every bit as stunning. Instantly, all eyes turned to Leo, who was walking behind them, and the gazes were filled with pure hatred. "Damn it, this guy stole our campus queen, and now he's brought another one just as beautiful? He gets all the luck." But soon, an insider who had been at the debate tournament yesterday spread the news. That girl is Leo's sister. His actual sister. The other students were stunned for a moment. Then their eyes lit up. "Sister? Doesn't that mean there's a chance?" The hateful glares instantly transformed into warm, eager ones. The more they looked at Leo, the more they liked him. He looked more and more like their future brother-in-law. So, it wasn't long before a dozen or two students, both acquaintances and strangers, started coming up to greet them enthusiastically. Not daring to approach Claire or Anna directly, they all made a beeline for Leo. "Leo, my man, been a few days. You're looking even more handsome." "Leo, you don't remember me? I'm Ken from the journalism department next to humanities, 6'1". "Hey, Leo, how did you know I just broke up with my girlfriend?" "Yeah, she said I was spoiling her with too many gifts." "Haha, that's right, my biggest flaw is that I treat my girlfriends too well." Their laughter was loud and hearty. Each one was like a peacock in front of a potential mate, desperately fanning its tail feathers. They were pretending to chat with Leo, but their eyes were darting over to Anna. Finally, Claire stepped in. Her cool gaze swept over the crowd of Berkeley students. "Are you done?" That one sentence, delivered with her icy aura, made them all fall silent. They shivered, snapped back to their senses, and nodded vigorously. "Done, all done. We'll let you get back to it. Ha. We'll see you later." And then they fled. Such was the intimidating power of Berkeley's campus queen. After finally shaking off the horde of enthusiastic brother-in-law hopefuls, Leo and Claire were able to give Anna a proper tour of the campus. As they walked, Leo pointed out the sights. "This is classroom building 3. We have our general ed classes here. This is building 1. It's close to the dining hall. It's a madhouse around meal times. And over there are the dorms. My girlfriend's is far from mine, so I usually walk her to her door and then go back. They happen to be passing by the overlook." "This is the Grove," Leo said casually. "It's where your sister-in-law and I usually make out." "Ahem. He corrected himself instantly, his expression calm. "It's where your sister-in-law and I discuss our life goals and academic pursuits." Beside him, Claire nodded with a straight face. "Indeed." Anna looked at the couple with disdain. "Do you two take me for an idiot? Academic pursuits. You mean exchanging saliva?" They spent the morning showing Anna around the Berkeley campus. Around noon, Leo and Claire were about to suggest they all get lunch together, but Anna waved them off. "No need. It's getting late, and I have to get back to my own campus. I'll come visit you guys again soon, or you can come visit me at my school." At that, her spirits seemed to lift. Perfect. The Golden State Invitational Finals are next week, and they're being held at East Bay Financial. It's also our school's anniversary celebration, so it'll be really lively. You should bring your roommates and come. I'll give you all a proper tour. Leo and Claire exchanged a look and smiled, agreeing to her proposal. They walked Anna to the school gate and saw her off in a taxi. As the car pulled away, a hand reached out of the back window, waving goodbye to them. "See you later." She had arrived like a whirlwind, and she left just as breezily. It was very much in line with her character. After she was gone, Leo and Claire looked at each other. "Hungry? Want to get lunch?" Claire raised an eyebrow. "Sure. I'm in the mood for wontons today." The couple found a small wonton stall on the street outside the school's east gate and sat down to order. 2 steaming bowls of wontons were quickly brought to their table. As they ate, Leo looked up at his girlfriend. He watched her focus on her food, savoring every bite, and couldn't help but smile. He thought about her family background, about the stunningly beautiful woman from his past life who had led Sterling Holdings to dominate the business world, standing under countless spotlights. And it made this simple scene in front of him feel incredibly precious and warm. That exceptional woman was now willing to sit beside him, happily eating wontons from a street stall. But even as he felt this warmth, a certain resolve hardened within him. The girl in front of him might be perfectly happy eating street food with him, but as her boyfriend, it was his duty to give her the best things in the world. "So, I need to get stronger and fast." After lunch, they took a bus back to the LNS house. They sat in the back by the window. Feeling a little sleepy, Claire naturally rested her head on Leo's shoulder and closed her eyes. Her hair brushed against his nose, tickling him slightly, carrying a faint, sweet scent. Leo carefully adjusted his posture to make her more comfortable. He felt the warmth of her soft body against him, heard her even breathing, and his heart was filled with a gentle warmth. He looked out the window at the passing scenery and began to think about his plans. Happy Nest was about to launch. David Chung had been calling him repeatedly. He would have to make a trip to their office first thing next Monday morning. As their chief strategy officer, he needed to be present at this crucial time to offer advice and help them iron out any last-minute issues. He also needed to register his own company, and the browser game project needed to move forward. The design outline was mostly complete. He had roped Potato into helping with content supervision, and he could leverage the author's fame for promotion later. He could also start looking for a programming team. The technical requirements for that weren't too high. He could ask David for recommendations. He probably knew some reliable outsourcing teams. But that wasn't too urgent. After all, the art team hadn't even produced the first batch of concept art yet. He would have to personally go and motivate his one and only employee again soon. As his mind raced, the head on his shoulder stirred. He instinctively turned and met Claire's gaze. She had, at some point, looked up and was now watching him, her eyes wide. "What are you thinking about?" Leo smiled, his tone light and teasing. Another woman. It was a suicidal declaration, a complete abandonment of self-preservation. But his girlfriend didn't get angry. Instead, she smiled and leaned in closer until her nose was almost touching his. "Is that so? Is she as pretty as me?" "Of course not," he replied without hesitation. She raised an eyebrow. "Then why are you thinking about her?" Leo's expression was one of pure righteousness. "I'm thinking about how to exploit her labor so I can earn money to support you sooner." His answer earned him a satisfied smile. She leaned in and kissed him. "Good boy. So sensible." Then her expression turned curious. "You have an employee already?" Lately, Leo had been busy with his various projects. As his girlfriend, Claire hadn't asked too many questions, only knowing that he was passionately pursuing his entrepreneurial plans. Besides, since he had said he wanted to surprise her, she was happy to wait in anticipation. Leo smiled. "Yeah, I just started recruiting. She's the first one." Claire nodded in understanding. Then, as if remembering something, she added a word of caution. "You just hired a female employee, and you're already exploiting her labor. Be careful not to work her too hard." Leo paused, then realized she was right. He began to feel a little guilty. "You're right. I'll reduce her salary and have her do less work then. A fair day's work for a fair day's pay. A perfectly reasonable distribution of labor." The next day, Monday, it was time for their major specific classes at the new campus. In a familiar advertising design classroom, the familiar date cake guy, Leon, was enthusiastically perfecting his date cake logo. The familiar Marco was continuing down his path of abstract creation, never to return. The professor walked around the room, took one look at their work, popped a nitroglycerin pill, and waited for his heart to calm down. He then pointed a trembling finger at the students. "You," he said, his voice filled with anguish, "are the worst class I have ever taught." After class, Leo, feeling the need to check in on his number one workhorse. No, to check in on his number one valued employee, went to the art studio. The moment he walked in, he saw a slender figure sitting alone in the back corner of the room, hunched over, drawing furiously. Leo walked up and greeted her. Busy. The girl behind the easel looked up. The sight of her face made Leo jump back in shock. Whoa, what kind of monster are you?